Hi, Dr. Chin. A very good morning to our distinguished guest of honors, Prof. Faiz bin Abdul Rahman, Utah Vice President of Research and Development and Commercialization, Chairpersons of Tun Tan Cheng Lock Center for Social and Policy Studies, Dr. Chin Yiman, the Working Committee of the webinar, and the fellow participants to this webinar. Welcome to all of you. Today, we are going to launch our COVID-19 Digital Timeline Malaysia, and this is the project that is carried out by Tun Tan Cheng Lock Center for Social and Policy Studies. Without further ado, I would like to invite our guest of honors, Prof. Faiz bin Abdul Rahman, our Utah Vice President, to deliver his opening speech and to launch the webinar and the Digital Timeline Malaysia. Prof. Faiz, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam MC. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam sejahtera and a very good morning to everyone. Associate Professor Dr. Chin Yiman, Chairperson Tun Tan Cheng Lock Center for Social and Policy Studies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. It is my great pleasure to be part of the opening ceremony of the webinar on COVID-19 pandemic in Malaysia, development, management, and implications, organized by Tun Tan Cheng Lock Center of Social and Policy Studies, Utah. An event which will give us the opportunity not only to shine a light on this important issue, but also to underline the importance of our livelihoods and our economies that have been turned upside down by COVID-19. We never expected the spread of COVID-19 pandemic last year. COVID-19 has disrupted every aspect of our livelihood, the movement of goods, the movement of people, but the severity of the disruption has made us realize the importance of digitalization and connectivity for information. The COVID-19 pandemic is still unraveling, leaving a huge impact on universities across the globe. Against this backdrop, universities need to adopt a new approach to help students and the public gain vital local and international perspectives and experiences of this pandemic. As a quick fix, the digitalization of information can help overcome the challenges during the pandemic crisis. The objective of this webinar of COVID-19 pandemic in Malaysia, development, management, and implications are twofold. First, it gives an insight into the COVID-19 pandemic from different perspectives, such as social, education, health, economic, and politics. Second, it provides exposure to an alternative and an innovative way of virtual learning. Thus, it plays a pivotal role in providing a life-changing experience to anyone, anywhere. This way, everyone, regardless of their educational background, will be able to connect digitally by accessing the interactive digital timeline for COVID-19 pandemic in Malaysia, which was developed by the Tun Tan Cheng Lock Center of Social and Policy Studies. Technology of high potential is of little value if the potential is not exploited. As the shape of 2021 is increasingly defined by COVID-19 pandemic, digitalization is like a ship loaded with technology that has a huge capacity for transforming mankind's knowledge. As such, this webinar provides a platform for researchers to discuss and examine the development of COVID-19, the government's management of crisis, and the impact of the pandemic on the Malaysian society. On behalf of the university, I'm very pleased to join this webinar despite the challenge posed by the COVID-19 pandemic. I wish to convey my sincere appreciation to Tun Tan Cheng Lock Center of Social and Policy Studies for making this event happen today. I would like to thank all the distinguished panelists and moderators for taking their time to participate from near and far in today's webinar. I hereby declare the webinar of COVID-19 pandemic in Malaysia, Development, Management and Implications, organized by Tun Tan Cheng Lock Center of Social and Policy Studies, is officially open. I would like to take this opportunity to also launch the COVID-19 Digital Timeline Malaysia, an initiative that I hope will benefit policymakers, researchers, and the general Malaysian public. Thank you.
With the end of the launching, we would like to begin our first session. Before we begin our first session, I would like to read out some house rules to be complied by the participants as well as the presenters. To the participants, your mic will be muted right throughout the presentations, but you are allowed to post the questions right in the chat box right to the presenter. So you need to specify the name of the presenter that the question is addressed to. To the presenters, you have 20 minutes to present your findings. And when all the presenters have presented the findings for a session, there will be Q&A session right to be held where the presenters are going to address the questions posed by the audience. So let's begin our first session. I would like to invite Dr. Chin Yiman and his team to deliver their first presentations on developing an interactive digital timeline for the COVID pandemic archive in Malaysia. Please welcome Dr. Chin Yiman and his team members. Okay, I'm so sorry, right? I received this message, right? Are you able to hear me? So
I can hear you, Ms. Cheong.
yes, okay, thank you.
Yeah, sorry.
So I have to repeat the house rules again, right? So this is, there are few simple house rules to be adhered to by both the participants and also the presenters. To the participants, your mic will be muted throughout the presentation time, but you are allowed to post any questions to any of the presenter. Please specify the presenter that you are addressing your question to. All right, so you may write your questions in the chat box right next to this the presentation's script. To the presenters, right, you have, each of you will be given 20 minutes to present your findings, and then towards the end of all the presentations for a session, there will be Q&A, right, to address the questions from the participants. So without further ado, I would like to invite Dr. Chin Yiman and his team members to deliver their first topic, which is on developing an interactive digital timeline for the COVID pandemic archive in Malaysia. Dr. Chin Yiman, please.
Yeah, so my apologies for the technical glitches just now. On behalf of our team, we would like to thank Prof. Faiz for officiating our webinar and also our digital timeline. Right, so our first presentation actually is made up of a team of our colleagues right, in Tun Tan Cheng Lock Center, Ms. Leong, Ken, Candy, Dr. Yan, and also Mr. Phua. Right, so we'll be explaining right, the whole process of developing this interactive digital timeline, right, for and it's for the development of our COVID pandemic archive in Malaysia. Ken, next, Ken. Right, so overall, right, so our team aim, right, for this project actually is to develop a digital archive, right, a digital archive. But before we develop our digital archive, we would like to develop the digital timeline first, because when we talk about archiving, right, we need to have a clear-cut timeline, right, to guide us on how to record the documents relevant to an event. And in our case here is our COVID-19 pandemic, right? Next, Ken. Right. So the whole archive and also our timeline project will benefit, right? Will benefit researchers and related stakeholders, so that they'll be able to get information regarding this disease and as well as its impact, right? I think especially our archive here, our timeline here, our main focus is to be a comprehensive info center. We're not looking only at the development of the disease. We are also looking at the social impacts, right, of the disease in Malaysia. Next, Ken. Right. So why we come up with this idea? So basically, right, so when we look around us, right, so since January last year, right, when we look around us, a lot of things have changed, right? A lot of things have changed, and this is caused, as all of us know, by the COVID-19 pandemic. It has brought to us many miseries, right? And when the pandemic erupted, the government, as they are performing their responsibility, right? So they took many measures, right, to control the pandemic, right? And as all of us know, right, when government take control measures, it will generate a chain of reactions, right? A chain of reactions. Okay, and many of these reactions, because we are not used to it, it become challenges, right, to our society, right? And in a way, sociologically, I will define this as a disruption, right, to the social structure, right? So our social equilibrium has been disturbed, right? The social order, right, has been disturbed by the pandemic, right? And we are undergoing a difficult period, right? And if you look at our history of Malaysia, right? Besides the Second World War, I think generally Malaysians have been living peacefully, progressively, right? But because of this disease, we have to undergo a lot of changes, and it's quite a difficult period for us to go through, right? And at the same time, many informations relating to this disease are circulating, right? So therefore, we think that we need to have a one-stop center, right? A center that will gather all information related to the disease, right? So that people will be more aware of disease, will be more aware of the consequences of the disease, right? And there will be less confusion, right? So as all of us can still remember, when the pandemic started and when government started to enforce various rules to control the disease, there were also various confusions, right, regarding rules, SOPs, and so on, which results into situations such as people flouting the laws, right, the rules. They are not doing it purposely, right? So many of them are confused, and therefore we need a one-stop center, a very clear center that will develop very clear information about the disease, the rules, the management, as well as the impact of the disease. Next, Ken. Right, so yeah, so as I mentioned just now, so that's the whole purpose, right? So we want to become a one-stop info center, right, for the development of the disease and the impacts, right, of the disease in our country, right? So there are various informations, right? There are various timeline also, right, available online. So my colleague later, Dr. Yan, she will show some of the available timelines now, right? But when we scrutinize all these timelines, many are very focused either on the development of the disease or on certain purposes. So we try to comprehend all this by coming up with a more comprehensive, interactive digital timeline. Right. So that is our project focus. Right. So next, Ken. Right. So right. So we hope, right, this project, right, will be able to provide sufficient information, information with documents, right, to enable everyone to know the disease, to know the impact of the disease, right? So consequently, eventually, we hope this timeline and the archive data will be able to facilitate scholars, researchers, policymakers, and the general public, right, to devise better strategies, right, to face this pandemic. Right. So over to you, Dr. Yan.
Pass it to Ms. Leong.
Yeah, okay. Thank you, Dr. Chin. Okay. The virtual timeline has been created by TCLC and uploaded to the Utah Social Science Resources website. As mentioned earlier by Dr. Chin, the digital timeline based on a one-stop center for all the stakeholders related to keep tabs on the overall development of the pandemic in Malaysia for better strategy to handle pandemic that is happening now and in the future. Furthermore, TCLC is hoping to store the digital archive in Utah research server. Overall, the duration has been taken for developing the proto design for digital timeline of this of the COVID pandemic. It started from 7 July until 18 July 2021. up to date, more than 10 meetings with vigorous discussion has been conducted via MT group, WhatsApp group, and Zoom among the researcher. This is all from my end. The types of digital timeline will be presented by my team member, Dr. Yuan. Dr. Yuan, please.
Okay, good morning, everyone. From my part, we explore existing timelines and archives of COVID-19 through the internet. So there are actually a few types of digital timeline used as an archive for analysis or for argument. Next slide, please. Okay, there are various online resources that shares COVID-19 information and development. So each platform actually covers certain aspects in relation to the pandemic in terms of purpose, target audience, and usability. For example, here we have Wikipedia, and there's target to from public, and we have WHO timeline, which is more interactive. Thank you. Next. So each platform comes in different level of visual interactivity designs in terms of aesthetics, whether it's in static or versus dynamic visuals and content, or whether they're having low level versus high level complex interactivity. So examples from here is actually more towards the academia and research websites, which is a bit more texty and a bit simple. Next. So these are some of the examples of existing timelines or archive we actually went through and reviewed. And most of them are actually from the government, non-government, from the media, and some also are from the community. And most of the community's information, we focus on those from the universities. So the studies of the existing timeline actually provided some ideas and guidelines for the design and development of our project. This one will be further explained by Mr. Lee. So I'll pass this to Mr. Lee. Thank you.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Dr. Yuan. Okay, I will just talk about the development of the prototype design and also the timeline design as well. So first of all, these are the few key areas that we are looking at. So if we investigate and explore the existing timeline and archive of COVID-19 in Malaysia through the internet. Then after that, we have the literature review and visualizing the research. On the design concept of the timeline, and also we have brainstorming sessions and meeting discussions on the development on constant basis. We have the design problem solutions of the prototype related, and we have the content add-on and finalize the stage for the launching. So these are the stages that we are actually looking at while developing this. So the early stages before we kickstart the prototype design, we actually look into a few resolutions. You can see there's a responsive there. So responsive web actually caters to desktop version, mobile version, and also the tablet version as well, as you can see based on the resolution on the left-hand side. So the prototype platform that we are using is actually called Figma. One of the main key advantages is basically it's open source, user-friendly, it's easy to set up. Now, there's a few limitations in this area. So we do have some problems in terms of the backend support, basically on the scaling up on the database, and also the search and data filtering itself. So these are the few limitations that Figma actually has. So the next area will be on the development of the flow of the pages. So one of the main key areas we're looking at is a very straight on, straight to the point kind of web page, because we don't want to have a lot of friction in between. So first of all, we look at the landing page, we look at the main menu, then we look into the date events and also the external links, which is contained in the digital timeline itself. So there are four key design concepts that we are actually looking at. So we actually have the minimalism, readability, legibility, and also the white space. So these are the few key design concepts before we kickstart the whole thing itself. Now, I'm going to talk about the minimalism concept. Okay, so the minimalistic approach is actually applied. It actually means that a user-centric approach to all things. Because first of all, when we are actually designing something like this, which is very heavy in terms of data and also all this external information, it's very important to actually focus on the user-centric approach. Just go straight to the point what we are actually doing. You don't have all the extra bells and whistles on top of all this. So with all the rapid development that we are actually facing, with all these technological advancements that's reaching us without in an infinite kind of method. So it's very important to implement a clear and precise objective-based interface. So this is one of the key areas. So during the development, this is for the user interface itself. The main sample that we actually follow is actually from Apple. So a minimalistic approach to optimize the information. Okay, as you can see here, optimize the information searching process and reduce the friction of browsing through massive amount of data. Okay, so then the next part. So this is like basically the whole interconnectivity of it. So UI, UX, they actually work together. So UX is basically the most important part of it because this is basically a user experience honeycomb for mobile. As you can see here, these are the key approaches in designing the digital timeline. Because we have to understand that if you design something very beautiful, but people don't feel like using it, that is also a very bad experience for them. So that's also one thing to put into consideration. So this is the first draft on how we actually want to put the data compilation and how the visual hierarchy works. So as you can see here, there's two different layouts here. One is on the left, one is on the right. So you can see the way we arrange the categories and also the dates are a little bit different. So this is just a very draft version of it. And this is the finalized UI design, how it looks like. This is the chosen interface design based on a very typography and table navigation system. So a sans serif typeface is chosen for better readability as well. So we also want this to look a little bit more timeless rather than making it a little bit more like old school kind of thing. So we want this to be utilized for future purposes as well. So, okay, I'll just talk about the two things. The draft prototyping. So after you design the whole thing, we have to look into the prototyping part. So we need to make it work. So one of the key features about Figma is after you finish all the linking process, so there's no code of it. There's no code involved here. So it's very quick process where you just link all the pages and also the links as well. So Figma allows you to generate a working prototype that can be shared to specific public. So the public itself, they can actually access the whole prototype in real time. So there's no friction in between. So then the next part would be the flexibility of this platform actually allows you to embed this whole prototype into an existing hosting platform, which is like the one that we are using right now, the TCLC server. So you can embed the whole prototype in there and it's actually live. So that's the beauty of it. So another thing that we need to look into when we are actually designing, we also take a lot of user feedback during the process itself. So the feedbacks are collected based on meeting sessions in MT and also WhatsApp. Okay, so we, as mentioned by Ms. Leong earlier, that we have a lot of meetings going on. So it's very good to get all this user feedback. They say, hey, this is too much, this is too little, or whatever it is to be improved. So the most important part of the user interface is basically the process. Okay, this is what we are trying to improve. So this is, as you can see here on screen, it's a prototyping process in Figma. This is just a very, very early stage of it. So this is how it looks like. Okay, so you can imagine like, you can have another 24 panels going on screen. So it's going to be very heavy. So this is the final outcome of the COVID-19 digital timeline after rounds of user feedback and everything. So I'm going to share this link. In the chat as well, so that you guys, everybody can go and have a look at it. So this is how it actually looks like in the page. Okay, so this is hosted in the TCLC server homepage. So if I click on, let's say, June 2021, so this is going to be the page that you lead to. As you can see here, there's this is the date itself. Okay, you can actually browse next, to May, and then you go to June, and then if I click on the institution, for example, I'm very interested on the 3rd of June, for example, under the education, I click on institution, it will actually scroll you all the way there. So if I go under the mental health suicide segment, or when I click on it, it actually browse you scroll all the way to the bottom. So when I click on this link, it actually loads up the external link. So this is the beauty of it. So this is like a one-stop center, and this is what Dr. Chin and the team has envisioned in building as well. So I'm going back to my slide. So let's move on to the next part. Okay, so I'm going to talk about the limitation and the implication for future studies. The first limitation will basically on the scalability. So this is what I mentioned earlier. you need to scale up the web page into a more massive unit. So we need a proper backend support, which is we need a proper MySQL database at the back. The second limitation is basically on the visual. If you need to make it a little bit more interactive, a little bit more catchy and whatsoever, with a bit of infographics, so that the scaling up itself will be will take up some space, so that the spacing will be an issue lah. So from there, okay. So the next one. So I'm going to talk about the conclusion. In summary, the duration to initiate the development of this timeline has taken about 3 to 4 months. You spend on average 3 to 4 hours per day, roughly, just to update most of the information. So this is the first digital timeline that works as an archive and also a one-stop center for accessing all the Malaysian-related COVID-19 information. So it's a go-to place to access all the info that's related to all the 6 categories. So TCLC will be storing this COVID digital timeline in Utah Research Center, and the archive of these 6 areas will be updated from time to time until the end of pandemic, which will be officially announced by the Malaysian government. So these are the list of references that has been collected and also done by the fantastic team. So these are the references. Okay. So this is the end of the session. So if you would like to reach out to the team, and these are the emails as listed on screen here. And I think thank you everyone for listening, and thank you for the team who has contributed so much towards the development of this timeline. So back to you, Ms. Chok.
Thank you, Mr. Lee, and also the team of Dr. Chin. We will move on to the next topic, which is on an analysis of social impact of COVID-19 on Malaysian society. And this topic is going to be presented by Kenneth Lee Zihui.
All right, thank you, Ms. Chok, the MC of the day. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can hear.
All right. All right, can anyone see the screen?
Yes, very clear.
All right, thank you very much. My name is Kenneth Lee. Good morning to everyone. I'm actually a lecturer in the Department of Mass Communication of the Faculty of Creative Industries, University Tunku Abdul Rahman. So today, I have the pleasure of sharing with you the findings of a very simple study entitled An Analysis of the Social Impact of COVID-19 on the Malaysian Society. So this is actually a project between myself and my partner, Ms. Eng Mei Chuan. So on behalf of us, I'll do this presentation. So without further ado, let me just give you a little bit of introduction on this topic. So Malaysia, just like the rest of the countries in this world, we are facing this huge COVID-19 crisis. And this is actually a global health hazard, which has killed like almost 5 million people worldwide, which is very, very serious. So when we are looking at this COVID-19 itself, right, we are not just looking at it being a highly contagious disease, but also we are looking at the profound impacts of various aspects or various kinds left by COVID-19. So Malaysia has witnessed the largest single blow to its social structure since the first non-cases of COVID-19 were detected in the country. So this was back in January, towards the end of January 2020. So when we talk about social structure, right, we are actually looking at a society and also the various components linked to it, like education, economy, health, legal, and etc. etc. So everything is interrelated. So multiple measures have been taken by the government, the Malaysian government, to control the situation and to contain the virus. But then again, these measures have had an impact on the Malaysian societies in many areas. So in my sharing today, I'm just going to touch on the social area, by talking about the social, how social order and well-being has been affected. All right, if you look at these 3 articles these are 3 articles that report on that report on like how millions of people have lost their livelihoods and how jobs have lost. Yeah, but in actual reality, there are actually so many more articles than this. This is just the tip of the iceberg. Yeah. So the reason why I'm highlighting on this economic impact, as a result of COVID-19 is not because this is a theme that I'm going to delve into. Yeah, but rather I would see this. Well, of course we know that COVID-19 is the main culprit, right? So because of COVID-19, the government has got to come up with, social movement restrictions and also like lockdowns. So all these measures have got a huge impact on the economy. So like what I mentioned just now, when we look at the social structure, it consists of various components. So when one component is affected, it also affects the rest of the components are also affected. Yeah. So the economy is nosediving into intensifying negative impacts on jobs, incomes, and people's livelihoods. And when these things are affected, right, social issues are bound to happen. All right. So it is very, very important that we look into the social aspect of COVID-19 and the implications. Yeah. So that if there is any, similar crisis or crisis in the future, we know how to respond to the crisis better. You guys can hear me, right?
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
All right. Thank you. Okay, the research objective is to understand the areas in which Malaysians have been socially affected by COVID-19 and its restrictions. Yeah. So we are only interested in looking at the social aspect of things. As for the methodology, okay, this study actually employed a review approach. Yeah, this study is actually part of the bigger. It's actually a byproduct of this project called the COVID-19 Digital Timeline Malaysia, initiated by TCLC. So while embarking on this project, right, me and my partner Mei Chan has got the opportunity to have access to a slew of articles. So we actually employed Google search, yeah, to crawl through news articles relevant to the social aspect of Malaysian lives. So this would involve the use of keywords like COVID-19, and if you look at this symbol over here, it means N, COVID-19 and Malaysia. So this has got to be in the context of Malaysia only. So we actually go through all the articles, regardless of the news portals. Yeah, but when necessary, we actually also included like site-specific operators like site semicolon, the star.com.my, just so that we can crawl through specific news portals. Yeah, just to confirm on certain news, certain stories, and also to triangulate things. So on Google search, we use this customized date range starting from January of 2020 all the way to September 2021. So based on all these articles, based on all the articles collected, right, and reviewed, we have identified 5 major areas, yeah, linked to this COVID impact. So after this, I'm going to talk about each and every of these 5 areas. Okay, the first area is on volunteerism and philanthropy. Yeah, so this area is actually not a negative impact, but rather a positive one. And this area is actually not new, not something new. It's always been there. Just that COVID-19 has kind of heightened the importance of this area. All right. So I think the earlier initiatives are linked to volunteerism and philanthropy were linked to were mostly concentrated in donations, yeah, donations, and also involving the government and bigger corporations. So back in January 2020, when the first few cases of COVID were found in Malaysia, it was still under the administration of Pakatan Harapan government. Yeah, So back then, I think Teresa Corp actually led an initiative to donate medical gloves, yeah, to China. This one is actually in collaboration with a few manufacturers of glove products in Malaysia. So after that, I think subsequently when Perikatan Nasional took over, they actually set up this COVID-19 fund where they managed to get like a few big corporations like Berjaya to donate and to spearhead the project, so that more and more companies would donate to this COVID-19 fund. Yeah, but of course there are also like funds by other bigger corporations like ones by TH and also Sinchu Daily. All right. So I think eventually the efforts linked to volunteerism and philanthropy were eventually they became more and more like rakyat centric. Yeah, in the sense that besides the government and also like bigger corporations, even like smaller companies and people like you and me, they have begun coming forward to render help to the needy. All right. So subsequently, more food or laundry aids and even like PPE donations were reported in the news with the increasing number of COVID-19 cases and hospitals running out of equipment, right? If you remember, towards the end of last year, I think sometime in September 2020, there was this Sabah by-election, right? So ever since the Sabah by-election, the COVID cases in the country, have kind of spiraled out of control. So much so that the public and also private healthcare system and hospitals were overstretched. So because of this, although the government has put in a lot of effort, pumping in a lot of money to help to buy equipment and all that, but all these resources are never enough. They are always limited. So because of this, those who could afford, right, they actually came forward to help out, to buy PPE to be donated to the hospitals and whatnot. And also the government has come up with aids and packages, yeah, to help those needy, especially those in the B40 and M40 categories. Yeah. So, but even so, like I said just now, these kind of resources, they are never enough and they are always limited, and therefore many citizens have remained hungry, yeah, and also in need of assistance. So this has actually prompted social projects, yeah, or community projects like the Bendera Putih movement. So this is actually a movement, I think, initiated by a past lady, and also movements like Feed the Poor, as well as online pay forward meals and whatnot, where you can actually pay for the meal of another person online, whether the person is a medical frontliner or the person is someone who has lost his or her job and in need of food. Yeah. So with this, we have also observed an emergence in the concept of social enterprises. Yeah, like this is something new. Like before this, we have heard of NGOs or even like not-for-profit organizations a lot, or NPO. Yeah, but we seldom heard of like social enterprises. But with COVID-19, a lot of these social enterprises have been established. So they're actually different compared to to NGOs, in the sense that these social enterprises, they may or may not be NGOs, yeah, and they actually make a profit, just very thin profit, just to be able to sustain themselves, yeah, and they usually champion good causes, yeah, for the social good and benefits. All right. So we are going into the second area on psychological distress, anxiety, and suicidality. So obviously, this is not a good area. This is a negative impact left by COVID-19. Prolonged MCOs and movement restrictions have resulted in an increasing level of stress, not just in the working adults, but also among the students as well. So this is actually quite a serious problem, not just we have seen newspapers reporting these issues, but these issues have also been confirmed in a few studies. Yeah. So for working adults, of course, they have got their own problems, linked to job insecurity, and also, most of them, their income has been affected. And for students, most of their problems are related to online teaching and learning. And most of the students, a lot of the students actually, they have also been affected by their families, their father, their mothers, financial problem. Yeah, so this is actually contributing to part of their overall stress. So such stress are positively correlated with the number of people getting suicide. Yeah, the increasing number of suicide cases as reported in the media. So towards the mid of 2020, the awareness on suicide, has begun rising, and this is because more and more news articles have reported on such cases. So it got so serious that as early as August 2020, just a few months into the MCO, there were already calls for the decriminalization of suicide, because I think up till today, suicide is still a crime in Malaysia. It is actually covered in the penal code. Yeah, and also in Q1 of 2021, almost 4 daily cases of suicide reported. Yeah, every day nationwide. This is quite serious. So there were also calls for the establishment of the National Suicide Registry and for the government to incorporate suicide prevention in MCO plans. Yeah, of course, the government has done a lot for the people, but maybe in these areas, these are a little bit lackluster, which the government may want to look into to address some of the issues faced by members of the society. All right. Next, we've got domestic violence and divorce. Prolonged movement restrictions, lockdowns, and all these mental distress felt by the people, have led to violence. And this violence actually included different forms, such as sexual harassment, domestic violence and abuses, and also rape. So all these are cases reported in the media, yeah, amid COVID-19 pandemic. So out of these few types of violence, right, domestic violence, has been the most prominently reported in the media, yeah, and cases of domestic violence are reported to have spiked in as early as April 2020, just 1 month into the first MCO. All right. So, violence, domestic issues and violence, and also all these stress, all these have taken a toll on, on the relationship of between, members of the family institution. So, with this, this has led to an increase in the number of cases of divorce in the country. So as of September 2021, right, there is actually a total of 78,000 divorces, yeah, being reported nationwide since the start of COVID-19. And our Prime Minister Ismail Sabri actually attributed the cause of these divorce cases to MCOs, yeah, the prolonged MCOs, and also the pressure felt by the people, yeah, affected. All right. Next part is actually on marriage and fertility. There is actually no data on whether or not there is a decrease in the number of registered marriages during the pandemic. No statistics pertaining to this has been reported. But one thing we know for sure is that a lot of people, their wedding and also their wedding ceremonies have been affected. Yeah. So in May 2020, wedding associations actually urged the government to come up with wedding guidelines and protocols because the guidelines and protocols back then were kind of vague, not so clear. So they wanted, clearer guidelines and protocols. And I think one couple actually even took it to social media to do this e-wedding. Yeah, that was back in 2020. So in June 2020, because of issues linked to like people refusing to refund those who have booked for their wedding. So the government actually proposed this COVID-19 bill to address issues on refunds. Yeah. As for fertility rate, right? Despite the fact that like more couples and spouses, they had more opportunity to stay under the same roof, spend more time together. But too bad, there is no COVID-19 baby boom. So there is no significant increase in birth rate in Malaysia during the COVID-19 pandemic. The last area which is pertaining to the social impact is actually on crime. This one is also positive because during the COVID-19 pandemic, the number of crimes has reduced, and reduced significantly. In March 2020, there is actually a 70% drop in crimes reported since the start of MCO. And between March to May 2020, the number of cases of crime, have been halved. So the drop in crime rate is actually attributed to the MCO. This one doesn't come from me, but this finding actually comes from the Bukit Aman Criminal Investigations Department Director Commissioner, Huzail Muhammad. Yeah, so he actually attributed to the drop in crimes to the MCO and also the subsequent rounds of prolonged MCO. All right, but despite the fact that crimes have reduced, right? He actually acknowledged the fact that crimes involving violence, especially like domestic violence, are still prevalent. All right. Okay, so with that, I guess my presentation has come to an end. Thank you very much. Over to you, Ms. Chok.
Thank you, Kenneth. We'll move on to the third topic, which is on an overview of Malaysia COVID-19 standard operating procedure. So this topic is going to be presented by Ms. Eng Nai Chuan and her team member, Basrin. Ms. Eng.
Thank you, Ms. Chok. Okay, good morning, everyone. I'm Eng Mei Chuan. I'm from the MCO and SOP team. In this project, our team was tasked with compiling standard operating procedure, SOPs, from different phases of Movement Control Order, MCO. We gathered the SOPs from government websites and news portals. Currently, the SOP is formally published on the ministry website, such as in Majlis Keselamatan Negara, MKN, Ministry of Health, MOH, My Sejahtera apps, and the news portal. Okay. Other websites such as KLOOK, KLOOK, for example, are open for the public to retrieve SOP information. In our project, we compile SOP mainly from MKN and the Star Online. The SOP published on the ministry website mainly are categorized based on sectors and industry. Therefore, if the public wants to refer to a specific SOP, they can visit relevant ministry websites such as MOH, MOE, etc. Okay. As for the MKN and the Star Online, SOP is categorized based on months and year. Therefore, if the public wants to refer to a specific SOP based on MCO phases, they can visit the two websites. Okay. So today, we would like to present our overview of Malaysia COVID-19 Standard Operating Procedure, SOP. Next. Okay. First of all, I would like to describe the Movement Control Order, MCO, in general and its chronology in Malaysia, as you can see on the table shown on the PowerPoint slides. Okay. The MCO was first announced by the former Prime Minister Tan Sri Muhyiddin Yassin on 16 March 2020 to curb the COVID-19 pandemic that affected worldwide, including our country. The nationwide lockdown began on 18th of March 2020 in the first MCO. The MCO implementations includes restrictions on movement in terms of inter-district, interstate and international travel, the closing of all business sectors and industry to contain the spread of the coronavirus. The second things that we want to talk about is the SOP, which is referring to the guideline for non-pharmaceutical interventions and PIs to combat the COVID-19 pandemic. Next. Okay, what is SOP? SOP is a guideline on COVID-19 prevention. The guideline was prepared by the National Security Council, Majlis Keselamatan Negara MKN, with the advice of relevant ministries. The COVID-19 SOP comprises guidelines on social distancing, temperature check, usage of face masks, and sanitizer, etc. These are the measures for non-pharmaceutical interventions and PIs to combat the COVID-19 pandemic. Okay, next. Okay, currently in Malaysia, we have 180 SOPs, inclusive of all activities. The SOPs were developed based on the needs of different sectors, social or community activities, as the government efforts to curb the pandemic. For example, the educational sector's SOP on reopening schools and the festive celebrations, as you can see on the PowerPoint slides here. Next, please. Okay. From our observation, we found that the SOP can be confusing for several reasons, namely terminology and its implementations, based on sectors and federal or state jurisdictions. First is the terminology used to identify different MCO phases. Each phase has its guidelines about interstate district traveling, types of business and social activities allowed. For example, all informal and formal social activities, including weddings and engagements, birthday parties, family gatherings, and reunions are permitted under the CMCO and RMCO. Another example, in CMCO areas, guest limits are only at 50% of capacities of the locations of event. However, for RMCO areas, the accommodations of guests is dependable on the size of their premises. From the example, it seems like the guidelines is ambiguous to the public. Next. Here is another example. There is a confusion about the essentials and non-essential services and goods. The sales of non-essential goods in supermarkets, grocery stores, and convenience stores that were initially barricaded caused many inconveniences. For instance, schools were closed during the total lockdown, and most children had PDPR, online teachings and learning, classes at home. Many Malaysians buffered by the closing of the stationary areas in the supermarkets and stores. Many Malaysians also felt inconvenient when the office hour and operating hours for eateries opened and closed simultaneously. Some Malaysians opined that the time limits was too restrictive, considering that most people only get off work late in the evenings to buy food after work. Malaysians are confused towards the overwhelming of SOPs and its frequent changes, which cause inconvenience to the public. Next. Although overwhelmed SOP caused confusions and inconvenience to Malaysians, SOP remains significant to flatten the curve during the pandemic. However, with the ease of restrictions, Malaysians can become complacent, giving rise to COVID-19 cases. Next. Okay, as you can see on the PowerPoint slides here, in the past 11 months, Malaysians witnessed the rise of COVID-19 cases from 3 digits in October 2020 to 5 digits in July 2021, as shown on the slide here. Next. The stringent SOP implementations during MCO1 resulted in fast flattening of COVID-19 cases. Okay, so during this time, pandemic is something novel to the entire world, including Malaysia. Most of the nations follows the guideline provided by WHO, World Health Organization. Furthermore, the uncertainty creates fears among people. Therefore, they are vigilant to combat the coronavirus by strictly following the SOP. Next, okay. These are some of the examples of strict SOPs implemented during the MCO1 period. As you can see, the floor marking emphasized on social distancing. The one person's rule, which is only the head of the family is allowed to go out, is to avoid the crowd in a specific premise. Finally, the 10-kilometer radius is to restrict movement in locality. Next, apart from the strict SOP, rigorous enforcement by mobilizing Police Diraja Malaysia, PDRM, and Angkatan Tentera Malaysia, ATM, to observe the SOP compliance among Malaysians, which helped flattens the curve. Both police and the army deployed to conduct roadblocks and frequent premise checks. As a result, Malaysia successfully decreased the number of COVID-19 cases into a single digit. Next. The COVID-19 cases in Malaysia started to rise with ease restriction, particularly during the CMCO and RMCO phases. During these phases, many business activities such as markets, eateries, and domestic tourism are allowed to boost the country's economic sustainability. Leisure activities are also allowed, including visiting museums, entertainments, and creative outlets. At this moment, Malaysians started to enjoy the relaxed restriction, making them complacent with the pandemic situations, resulting in the case spikes. Next. Malaysia witnessed the rise of cases due to the Sabah elections that triggered many clusters nationwide. Okay, and on the 24th of October 2020, it was the beginning of 4 digits COVID-19 cases recorded daily. Okay, next. The ease of traveling restriction also gave rise to clusters involving social and community activities. During the festive celebrations, Malaysians were allowed to do interstate and inter-district travels, and school holidays took place during the December 2020. Okay, so next. Malaysia was concerned about the boosting the economic sectors despite the high number of cases. For instance, one of the SOPs that puzzles many Malaysians when the governments announced that states under the conditional and recovery movement control orders would resume tourism, culture, and arts activities. Next. Many Malaysians still not adhering to social distancing and slacking in wearing of face masks during the festive celebrations, and travel bubbles activities give rise to the community cluster. The Health DG said during his daily press conference on 29 May 2021, even though the government has restricted visiting and celebrations, many people still ignore this directive, and this has caused such clusters ending up in deaths. Next. The transition periods between the movement control orders and national recovery plans phases shown an alarming rise to COVID-19 cases. The cases continue to rise and reach 5 digits daily. At this point, many Malaysians commented on the government actions of not imposing a strict MCO, as the countries experienced during the March 2020 lockdown. Many workplace cluster rises during this period as the economy reopens. Although total lockdown is an ideal way to combat the pandemic, the governments realize that there is the need to balance both economy and health. Next. The cases continue to rise with a high daily recorded case of 20,000 in August, resulting from business activities and other social activities. Although the basic SOP is still being imposed, but going back to work due to the opening of sectors and allowing various public activities hinders the practicability of the SOPs. In this sense, the ease of restriction can be perceived as how Malaysians practice the new normal, as we need to find a way to coexist with the virus. Next. SOP still remains the most crucial measure to curb the pandemic. As observed, cases and clusters continue to rise due to non-compliance as some fail to follow the SOP. Prime Minister in a yesterday press conference announced that the interstate travel ban is now lifted and Malaysians are now allowed to travel back to their hometown. Still must observe the SOP strictly as advised by the Prime Minister and other ministries. As a reminder, so that we can still contain the number of cases, regardless of the number of SOP. It's stringent enforcement and countless reminders made by the government for Malaysians not to be complacent with the situations. It boils down to one's responsibility to protect ourselves and the community as propagated hashtags Kita Jaga Kita. That's all for our presentation. Thank you. Over to you, Ms. Job.
Thank you, Ms. Eng. So we have come to this end of the session 1, and now it's time for Q&A. I would like to read out the questions and also to direct the questions to the respective team. So I will begin with the last question to be directed to the third team. Okay. So there is one question for the third team, Ms. Eng.
Is still valid.
Do you think the SOP is still valid with the high rate of vaccinated Malaysians?
Yeah, this is a good question. Yes, okay, SOP is still valid because right now in the new norms, we cannot run away from practicing this SOP. Okay, no matter you like it or not, you still have to comply with it lah. Okay, so to avoid ourselves and then to protect ourselves and our community. So this is something which is a must lah. Okay, even though we have vaccinated, it's just for protections only. Okay, it doesn't mean that you are fully immune from it. So it is very important that we still have to actually follow SOP. Okay, to protect ourselves and our loved one. Okay, I hope that will be the answer. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Ms. Eng. So we'll move on to the next questions. There's one question for the second team. So the second team is, the topic is presented by Kenneth. So this is your question. Based on the government's response to the social impact of COVID-19, do you think it has done a good job? Do you think government has done a good job to address the challenges of COVID-19?
All right, thank you very much for the question. I think to answer the question, right, I think we need to give credit where it is due. I feel that the government definitely has done its part in trying to relieve the people, of the negative impact of COVID-19. For example, they have, come up with financial aids and packages to help not only people in the B40 and M40 communities. Yeah, maybe to some of us, we may feel that these monies are not important. It's just small monies to some of us, but to those hardcore poor, these monies are actually very, very useful. Yeah, and besides these two communities of B40 and M40, the government has also come up with schemes, yeah, to help the micro, small, medium businesses. All right, but having said that, there are also areas which I feel that the government should have done better, but did not do so well in, which is related to some of the things that I shared with you, some of the observations where some experts, yeah, and some organizations, they have come forward to urge the government to do this and that because it is lacking. Yeah. So and also I think another reason why sometimes when it comes to this social impact, right, the government did not handle things or respond as well, especially during the administration of the previous prime minister, is probably due to internal bickering, yeah, and also politicking. So this definitely has taken a toll on the people, on the society. But I think the way I see it right now, the situation has rather improved. So we hope that it will continue to remain this way. Yeah. So I hope that answers your question. Thank you very much.
Yeah. And then, okay, one more thing. There's one more question for you, right? So the participant would like you to comment on the actions taken by the governments, whether the actions have somehow reduced the social impact that the pandemic COVID-19 brought to the people. So whether policies of the governments are effective.
Yeah, I would say that, just like what I mentioned just now, I would say that some of these policies, they can relieve the negative impact, part of the negative impact. But I do not think that the impact per se can be relieved 100%. Because when we talk about livelihoods, when we talk about job security, all this is actually linked to the economic aspect of things. Yeah. And then if you have read some news articles, right? Some experts have actually commented that the economic impact caused by COVID-19 is actually worse, so far worse than the one that we faced back in 1997, the 1997 economic crisis. So this may take like generations, yeah, to recover. So when a lot of things, like I mentioned just now, a lot of things are actually interrelated, right? We're talking about social structure. So when the economic part of things or the economic aspect of things is affected, then eventually, social issues are bound to happen. Yeah. So I foresee that, all these issues will still be there in the short run. Yeah. Cannot be erased so soon. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Kenneth. So we received one more question for the third presenter, Ms. Eng. Ms. Eng, you might want to get yourself prepared for these questions. And this question is that, it's from Chin Zhen Dong, right, to Ms. Eng. The question is, should we increase the penalties to these SOP violators? Should we punish the violators because they are not adhering to SOPs?
Okay. Okay. Now, in my opinion, we have been stuck in this situation for almost 2 years, right? Okay. So by now, I think everyone should be aware and cautious about the virus. Okay. So therefore, personally, I think it's okay to have a more stringent penalties to be introduced now, since that everyone already know about it. So I don't think it's going to be a big problem. Okay, so I hope this answered the question. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Ms. Eng. Right, so now we will address the questions. I hope that the team 1 will address these questions. There are few questions for team 1. It seems that the team 1 managed to grab the attentions of the participants. So I will read out the first questions. It is available right in the chat box. How long do you spend to complete the prototype? How long it takes for you to complete a prototype?
Ms. Chok, thank you for the question. I think we took about 3 to 4 months to develop the whole thingy from the draft all the way until the end, which is sometime in mid of October, just I think a few days before the seminar. So that was the actual timeline that was allocated to actually develop that. It's a bit tedious at the process, so that's why it takes a long time to update and everything. So yeah.
Okay, and then the second question is, what is the most challenging aspects of the prototype? Maybe in terms of the design, or maybe in terms of brainstorming for the idea.
I think the most challenging part will be the updating itself, because we are using Figma. Figma is a free platform, so we can't expect it to work 100%, as according to how we want it. So we are actually using another plugin called Anima. So Anima will actually convert whatever we have whatever we have created into the HTML based platform, so that when we upload to the TCLC server is more optimized for web viewing purposes, because Figma, when it first created, is basically for mobile and tablet based. So that's what they are doing. So that I would say that is the most challenging part, and also the updating of all the contents by the team members, because they have done so much work. So I have to update it in because I have to update it twice. So if I'm doing it for the web, I need to update for the mobile platform as well. So that process will take a bit of time. So I every time I'm chasing against time just to make sure everything's up to date.
Okay, so one more question from Angeline Wong. Her question is, does the database for COVID-19 timeline include resources in languages other than English and Malay?
So far, based on the content that we have received, majority is in English, some in Malay. So I think in the future, when like what Dr. Chin has envisioned, this thing is going to be a massive thing. So it's going to be an archive. Whatever we are saying right now is basically a proof of concept to show that this thing works. So the next stage will be growing it to another stage where we have a proper database. We're going to have the back-end support as well to actually do all this. So at this moment, sadly, we are looking at the process where we're going to grow it into different languages. I think that is a very good idea actually for the team to look into.
Okay, thank you so
Good
much.
question. Thank you,
Yeah.
Ms. Job.
Yeah, we have very vibrant participants, dynamic one. So, so with this, the ending of the, Q&A session, we will move on to the next session, right, which is session 2. Right, so the first presenter for the second session is Ms. Leong and her team member, Li Jianyuan. And they are going to present to us the progress and development of data collections of economic measures and impact for the digital archive during Malaysia COVID pandemic period. Ms. Leong?
Thanks, Michelle. And good morning, everyone. Okay, just a second, okay? I try to click. Thank you, everyone. I would like to share the experience and the progress and development of data collection of economic team about the measure and impact for the digital archive during Malaysia COVID pandemic. Actually, this working paper focused on the process of the researcher how to collect the data related to the economic impact and measure during the pandemic outbreak in Malaysia since 2020. It enables a digital platform that organizes and records massive data and information related to the Malaysia economic impact and measure during the COVID pandemic outbreaks. And the data and information, including a report on GDP, consumption power rate, FDI, company closed down, decline in household income. There are about 4 stages for the whole progress and development. So today I'm going to share the team member professional experience in collecting the data and information. So it was actually constructed based on numerous first-hand observation, discussion, reflection, and progress report with the project leader and the team member among. This project, this working paper actually provide an opportunity for the future researcher to critically evaluate and develop a chronological one-stop research center of digital timeline archive with organized and concise data related to economic impact and measure during the COVID pandemic outbreak till the end. And it also related to issue related to the data collection and resources during a pandemic outbreak by using search engines and keywords with the electronic devices, and the problem solving and organizational skill of the researchers. As mentioned earlier, there are about 4 development, 4 stages for the process and development of the data collection. The initial stage first start up on 6th of June 2021, and the final, the 4th stage end, around 10th of September 2021. So the team member start up this stage by using very simple keywords such as COVID impact on Malaysia economic, COVID impact on economic and measure in Malaysia, and also the impact of COVID pandemic outbreak and measure of the Malaysian government. Apart from that, we are also request to add on the create the caption for the data that collected on the Excel spreadsheet. And in addition, we need to include the sources and the website that we have searched. Okay, so after 1 week, okay, we spent around 1 week for the initial stage. Then we have seen some, we have found some limitation and future study before we move into the second stage. Of course, then we all have to, update the relevant keyword and data related to the areas, the sector that we have to focus. Apart from that, which means the other limitation, then that we have found is insufficient data collection related to the COVID impacts on the income group, consumption power of Malaysia during the pandemic period. So therefore we plan, and include this new direction, focus this new direction for our next stage. Such as the National Recovery Plan and stimulus package on SMEs. Apart from that, we also include a new subsector. It's about specific data, of the statistic related to the economic and finance sector. So all these specific data is compiled according to the sources and information from the OSM and metric. Okay, when we move to the second stage, then there are some additional keywords and further mapping on the subsector of economic. The new keywords that we had included, such as economy, unemployment rate, foreign exchange rate, economy GDP, economy finance, economy and economic policy GDP, unemployment rate, inflation rate, and also economic policy stimulus package, SME, unemployment rate, income group, middle class, COVID impact on income group. Besides that, we also add on data filtration in Excel for the display of the COVID digital timeline. Okay, we start working on this because we need to prepare, prepare for the data to be put up on the digital timeline, the prototype of the digital timeline. Okay, during this stage, then we also, updated, some new data collection. Then we have included 8 economic stimulus packages under the 10 and 11 Malaysia plan since 2020 until 2021. The second direction that we have to include, is consumption pattern and income group. And thirdly is the National Recovery Plan and Stimulus packages for the SMEs. The limitation and future study that we have found, in this second stage, of course, it is like continue, we have to continue update the related data from time to time until the end of the pandemic. And then we found, there's insufficient data collection related to the impact on the income group and stimulus packages for the important industry under the National Recovery Plan of the upcoming stages. And apart from that, my team member also, has extended all this into another future study related to the initiative and stimulus packages. My team member will share this with you guys in the next section. Mr. Lee will share with you all. Okay, this is the outlook of the income for our data collection. It's more to the progress and data collection from July to December 2020. And this outcome actually is around the first to the second stage, okay? From first to the second stage. As you can see in this outlook, of the draft on the spreadsheet, you can see all the data has been arranged chronologically, and we use the specific keywords caption to summarize the development of the events, and some web links and the sources included as well. And this one is the progress data collection from January to May 2021. And this is the progress of the data collection from June to July 2021. Okay, so after this, we move. Of course, there is some outcome, related, which we have to mention. I have just mentioned, the new subsection for both specific data from the DOSM and metric. And this one is the outlook of the stage of after the third stage on the spreadsheet. Progress of the data collection since July 16 until 29 of July 2021. For the third stage, we have gone through numerous discussion, report progress, and presentation with the project leader and team member. We also include some new keywords such as consumption pattern, consumer behavior, support for tourism industry, market volatility, price sensitivity, and purchase power, which our team member who would like to fill up the gap in our second progress report with the project leader. And for the first stage, this one, we are ready for data which has been gone through the filtration, ready to display on the digital COVID timeline. Okay, this is the outlook of the outcome on the spreadsheet after gone through the filtration. The data filtered in the spreadsheet and is ready for the display on the COVID digital timeline. So like the duration and development of the whole progress from stage 1 to stage 2 is started from 6th of June 2021 until 10th of September 2021. And even though, let's say, like we have already presented, all the stage 1 to stage 4 today, but we are still continuing to collect the data until, the government announced the endemic. So like all this data that we have collected, filter, and refine, then will be uploading. Some has already, uploaded, on the COVID digital 19 digital timeline of Malaysia under Tun Tan Cheng Lock Social Policy Research Center. And this is the link, then you can click in and have a look. Of course, we are continue to show, whatever upcoming, like related important data related to the economic and finance of Malaysia. And this is the related website. Our researcher, our team member, have been frequently search, economic impact, of the COVID-19 pandemic in Malaysia, like under the Wikipedia economic impact, and also Malaysia economic outlook, then economic stress, Malaysia COVID pandemic, United Nations COVID-19 commitment to Malaysia, then also the impact of COVID on the retail industry and the next action to be taken. Government measure and stimulus packages, Malaysia GDP growth rate, Malaysia unemployment rate, Malaysia capital flow and Malaysia foreign direct investment, and Malaysia trade data 2020 until 2021, and the age bucket report. My team member, Mr. Lee, he's going to share, very detailed and insight review about the subsector or the aspect related to the SMES and Malaysia SMES and the employment rate and personal income of Malaysian 2020 in the next section. This is all from my end. Ms. Chok, it's over to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Leong.
Okay.
So we'll move on to the next presenter on another topic, which is on a review of the Malaysian government's measures, impacts on SMEs, employment and individual income in year 2020. So I would like to invite Mr. Lee, right, and also his team member to present this topic. Mr. Lee, please.
Hello. Hello, hello.
Yes, Ms. Lee, I can hear you.
Yes. Do you see me?
Yes, I try to mute myself first.
Oh, okay, okay.
Yeah.
So, can Ms. Leong help me to present the slide?
Oh, yes, sure. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. Just a second, yeah.
Yeah. Dear all, good morning. So the topic that I would like to present today is a review of Malaysia government measure, SMES employment and income in year 2020. Okay, as we know, the COVID virus was first discovered and outbroke in China, Wuhan, October 2019. The COVID virus has spread very quickly to the whole world, including Malaysia. The first reported COVID case in Malaysia was on 24th of January 2020. The COVID case keep increasing fast from 22 cases in February to 238 cases in the mid-March 2020. In order to control the COVID pandemic, our government decided to implement the movement control order with aim to curb the spread and cut off the transmission link. The measure of MCO was successful in flattening the curve, but it has seriously affected Malaysia, the economy. This caused the economy of Malaysia fell by 5.6% in 2020, and such impact lead to the livelihood of the nation. Okay, I think some problem of the slide. Maybe I will share now.
I have not clicked it yet. I have already shared it.
Oh, I think haven't presented it yet.
Oh, okay, sorry, yeah.
Yeah.
Just a second, yeah. Okay,
thank you.
okay.
So we continue. The government realized the impact and has taken several initiatives to assist the people, business, and economy by implementing some special policies and action. Okay, So there are total 8 programs implemented, okay? 4 of them in 2020 and another 4 in the 2021. The 4 initiatives implemented in 2020 were Prihatin Rakyat Economy Stimulus Package, or we call it Prihatin, Prihatin Plus, Penjana, which the short form is Plan Jana Semula Ekonomi Negara, and also the Kerangka Initiative Tambahan Khas Kita Prihatin. This initiative can be further break down to some specific programs to assist the business and people. The government has executed various grant and financing programs under such initiative. Apart from that, there are also some additional initiatives implemented lately in 2021, such as the Prihatin Special Grant, Penjana Small and Medium Enterprise Financing, Penjana Tourism Financing, Bumiputra Relief Financing, Agrobank Microcredit Financing, and Technical and Digital Utilization Support Initiative, and Tekong Business Recovery Scheme, and etc. This research aimed to review the measure which the government had implemented in 2020 for the aspect of SMEs, employment rate, and the income level part. And also there's impact on this aspect based on the review and analysis of the report published by the Department of Statistics Malaysia, which we call it DOSSM also. So firstly, the researcher categorized the initiative and program according to the report, which are directly related to the aspect of SMEs, employment rate, and also income level. Secondly, the researcher also make an analysis by comparing them with the total spending of government on this aspect. As shown in the chart, okay, we can see the total budget allocation of 305 billion has been allocated to the 4 plans, which was implemented in 2020, and the total budget of 247 billion was allocated to the related aspects of SMEs, employment rate, and also generating income. So based on the review and analysis mentioned here, we can understand better by comparing the government debt and role of GDP of these 2 aspects. In year 2020, the Malaysian government budget are 297 billion. So if we compare the total spend of the government to the budget, it's almost equal or even higher than our budget in year 2020. 305 billion divided by 297 billion, it was 102.69% for the budget. For the budget state related with the business and people, it was 247 billion over 297 billion. It also 83.19% of our budget. Therefore, due to the extra expenses on relief the business and people, our government debt has gone up very quickly. Till 2020 September, our government debt was 874 billion and increased 0.12 billion compared to year 2019. The ratio over GDP also reached the 60% line. Therefore, our finance minister was forced to seek approval from the cabinet and also the parliament, both in order to raise the government debt ceiling from 55% to 60%. And such requests were approved by the parliament on 24th August of 2020. In fact, such kind of request was happened before in year 2009 or 10 years more before. In order to deal with the financial crisis, our government chose to adopt an expansionary fiscal policy to boost the economy and raise the debt ceiling ratio over GDP from 45% to 55% in 2009. And our finance minister has been requested to raise the debt ratio again at 3rd of September 2021 from 60 to 65. So under these circumstances, as mentioned, we can clearly understand that our government has spent a lot of money in order to relieve and assist the people and business, especially SMEs, so that it can provide more job opportunity for people. Hence, we can eager to know that whether all the measure works, how is it effect. We can observe from the report that published by the DOSM. In addition, the prolonged health crisis caused by the pandemic of COVID-19 in 2020 has seriously affected Malaysia's economy, especially to the aspect of SMEs, we call it small and medium enterprise. The Nationwide Movement Control Order, MCO, which includes various measures to curb the spread of the COVID-19, has resulted a decline in all economic sector performance, such as SMES contribution to the economy in terms of GDP, we call it gross domestic product, export and employment, and have also decreased in year 2020. If we count by year-on-year basis, we call it YOY. Okay, SMES GDP is dropped 73% compared to year 2019. Export is dropped 33.1%, and employment is dropped 0.9%. Based on the timelines, the time series, of Malaysia GDP and SMES GDP, the growth of SMEs GDP is usually higher than Malaysia GDP. However, in 2020, the growth of SMES GDP registered at negative 7.3%, which was lower than Malaysia GDP for the first time over the past 17 years since 2003. The contribution of SMES GDP is to 38.2% in 2020, with a value added of Malaysia 512.8 billion as against 38.9% in the preceding year. Service and manufacturing sector remain as the main driver of the SMES GDP activity, which both sectors represent more than 80% to SMES GDP. Furthermore, export of SMES registered to a decline of 33.1% to Malaysia 117.8 billion in 2020, as compared to a growth of 2.6% in 2019, attributed by the services and manufacturing sector as portrayed in the chart. Nevertheless, SMES export to agriculture sector has gone up 2.5%, which amount to Malaysia 2.3 billion in 2020, which reflected in the increase of SMES export to vegetable, fisheries, pottery, banana, and durian. So the share of the SMES employment was dropped to 48% in 2020 after persistently recorded an increase for the past few years. In terms of the number, SMES employment accounted for 7.25 million persons in 2020, decreased by 0.9% or equivalent to 65,000 population as compared to 2019. Larger decline in SMES employment as against a decrease in Malaysia and national employment during the year, indicating SMEs were hit significantly by the COVID-19 health crisis. Prior to 2020, the average annual change of SMEs employment was 3.0%, or with an addition of 200,000 persons annually. Our employment status have obviously decreased due to the pandemic. Following the health crisis as well as various phases of MCO, Malaysia economy in 2020 fell by 5.6% due to sluggish performance in all economic sectors. Consequently, labor market experienced unprecedented trend of recording unemployment rate above 4%, the highest since 1993. The unemployment rate hit by 1.2% points to 4.5% in 2020 as against the previous year. The number of unemployed persons add up year-on-year basic by 39.9%, or 202.8 thousand persons to record 711,000 persons. The number of unemployed persons increased more than 200,000 persons as compared to the pre-crisis period. Unfavorable business performance during the year had led to increase in employment losses as well as cancellation or freezing the new hires. Those softer labor demands were observed with lower number of employed persons registered. As shown in the chart, we can see the active employment unemployed person, which refer to the person who were available for work and actively seeking for job. The largest share of actively unemployed was contributed by those who were unemployed for less than 3 months, with a percentage share of 46.6%. In the meantime, 9.4%, or equivalent to 48.3 thousand persons, were in long-term unemployment for more than a year. Generally, we can notice that all the categories show that there are more people taking more time to look for a job. In 2020, both male and female unemployment rate went up to 4.4% and 4.7%, respectively. The number of male employment person was higher than by 41%, or 424.7 thousand persons. Meanwhile, female unemployed person registered increased by 38.3% or 286.3,000%. In terms of the age group, the unemployment rate for youth age 15 to 24 is up by 1.5 percentage point, okay, to 12% or 314,000 youth were unemployed in 2020. Similarly, the unemployment rate of youth age 15 to 30 years posted an increase of 1.5 percentage points to 8.3%. The unemployment rate for adult age 25 to 64 years old, okay, went up by 1.3 percentage point, okay, to 3.0% as compared to 1.7%. Throughout 2020, the COVID-19 pandemic that has engulfed the world, including Malaysia, had created a massive impact on the Malaysian economy. The pandemic had changed the economy and social landscape of the country as well as the labor market. This situation caused many job loss and eventually losing sources of income. In addition, the business activity had to be temporarily halted and some had undergone business closure. Consequently, unemployment rate of the country reached a rate of 4.5% in 2020, the highest in almost 3 decades. So the consequence of the descent of the GDP and SMEs performance and the increase of unemployment rates had led to the decline of income. According to the 2020 Malaysia Salaries and Wages Survey report published by DOSM on 14 July 2021, it showed that our income had decreased a lot. The same as our purchasing power, no matter from which angle. During the 2019 and 2020, median monthly salary and wages recorded a double-digit decrease of 15.6% from Ringgit Malaysia 2,442 to 2,062. Likewise, the mean monthly salaries and wages also declined from 3,224 to 2,933. According to the finding of the survey, the median monthly salaries and wages for male were consistently higher than female since 2010. In 2020, the monthly salaries wages by male employees were 2,093. It fell 15.5% as against 2,477 in the previous year. Meanwhile, median value for female employees decreased 14.8% to 2,090. The mean monthly salaries and wages for male employees in 2020 also fell by 341 or negative 10.3% to 2,963, while the female employees fell by 219 or negative 7% to 2,889 as compared to the previous year. In terms of the median and mean monthly salaries and wages of employee by age group, almost all age group posted a decline in 2020 as compared to the previous year. In 2020, the highest median of the monthly salaries and wages for employees aged 35 to 44 years with a median of 2,927, while the lowest was 15 to 24. Okay. As for the mean of a monthly salary and wages, the age group of 45 to 54 years recorded to the highest mean with 3,792, followed by age group 35 to 44 years, and also the 55 to 64. The mean monthly salaries and wages of the largest recipient group, which was 15 to 24, it posted a decline of the 246 to register 1,547 as compared to the 1,793 in 2019. The highest median monthly of the salary and wages of employees with tertiary education declined by 402, okay, to 3,499, okay, as compared to 2019. Similarly, secondary education went down by 325 to register 1,630, followed by primary education, which was lower by the 286 to this one. Sorry.
Yes.
By lowest by 286 to 1,274, and no formal education with a reduction of 199 to 1,237. Likewise, the mean monthly salaries and wages poses, okay, a decrease whereby the tertiary education marked 4,171 with a minus of 472. Secondary education recorded 2,125, lower by 247, and primary education at 1,556 decreased by 373. Meanwhile, no formal education continued to decrease by 161 to register 1,447. So all the ethnic groups recorded a decrease in median and mean monthly salaries and wages in 2020. In terms of value, Chinese is ahead, followed by Bumiputera, okay, Indian and others for the year 2020. In 2020, the median monthly salaries wages for Chinese fell by 4.9% to 2,470 as compared to the previous years. Meanwhile, the median monthly salaries and wages for Bumiputera decreased to 2019, followed by Indian and others. The mean monthly salaries wages for Bumiputera registered the largest decrease of 9.6% to 2,817, followed by Indian and Chinese. So in 2020, it showed that the median and mean monthly salaries and wages of employees in both urban and rural areas declined as compared to the previous year. The median monthly salaries wages of urban employees posted a double-digit negative growth with 11.6% to record 2,268, while median of employees in rural area decreased by 14.1% to 1,340 as compared to the 1,560 in 2019. Similarly, the mean monthly salaries and wages of urban and rural areas also declined in 2020. The mean monthly salaries wages for urban lessened by 9.3% to mark 3,089, while rural was down by 5.5% to 2,086 as again to the previous years. We knew that COVID-19 is a global crisis, and our government had tried and put in effort to assist our citizens. As mentioned by Tan Sri Muhyiddin, our former PM, in his speech on September 2020, throughout the stimulus package, or we call it Prihatin Tambahan, government had successfully benefited 2.63 billion employees and also 321,000 enterprises. This is up to 11 of September 2020. However, this does not mean that the assistance from government can fully relieve the negative impact from the COVID-19. Therefore, it needs more efforts from the government to solve the root cause of the economic problem. If you refer back to the data has shown and discussed earlier, which based on the report of DSSM, it significantly showed that all the related aspects of the Malaysian economy and finance are declined, which means that we need to ease the MCO and lockdown measures in order to boost the recovery of the Malaysia economy and finance, as the measures taken and implemented by the government previously are not able to improving the declining of the Malaysian economy. Therefore, it's essential for the government to solve the root cause problem instead of keep supporting the business and people whilst implementing the lockdown. The government should take more consideration into taking more comprehensive measure to cut off the transmission, such as efficiency, tracking all the suspected COVID cases, adopting adequate action like tighten the entry from high-risk country or region, providing appropriate treatment and accelerating the vaccination ratio to more than 80% both, so that we can have the end of the pandemic. All these enforcement are far more better than keep implementing initiative and stimulus package for employers and employees, but remaining in lockdown the whole country. Thank you for listening. So over to you, Ms. Chok.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. So we will move on to the third presenter on the topic COVID-19 and Malaysian politics, a framing analysis of online newspaper. So I would like to invite Ms. Tang Jian Hui to present this paper on behalf of the team members. Ms. Tang?
Yes. Can I see my slide?
Yes.
Sorry, due to the bad network, I can't able to share my video because I scare will be disconnected or lagging after this. Good morning, everyone. Today I will present about COVID-19 and Malaysia politics and the list of online newspaper. Newspaper publisher provide online user to get some information, allow readers to enjoy the news content that include not only the words and also some image or even a video. And there is an extra information is provided to the readers through the link to related topic. There is a history or background of the story and also enriched with some image visual. And news website report are expected to be a fair and impartial coverage of fact compared to traditional media, because the online website in Malaysia is free for regulation and no publication acts such as traditional media to control or restrict most of the content. To another information is Malaysia had 26.969 million internet users in January 2000, and according to digital report, in between 2019 and 2020, the number of internet users was increased to 3.6%. In January 2000, 83% of Malaysian has access to the internet, and in the same time, we will have 26 million of social media user. For objective of the study, the goal in the research will look to this pandemic period, the political news coverage, and understand the online news pattern. Next, the objective of credibility in news reporting. Objectivity is a universal journalistic symbolic. However, when there is unfair and unbalanced news reporting, then it described as a failure to achieve the objectivity of news reporting that is not biased, fair, and based on fact, instead being influenced by other elements such as emotion, power, influence, and so on. News reporting objective is based on exception that news must be objective on truth and fact, balance, and display through social fact. Media that objective and priority social justice will be able to monitor the government and assist the public in obtaining relevant information, as well as increase public interest in political issue and strengthen government governance. According to BZ, media credibility is the word trustworthy of a news medium that focus on an individual or group as a communicator or the message itself. As opposed of the source credibility, he comes to conclusion that the channel used has an impact on person perspective of network credibility. Next, news consumer or readers who are concerned about the reliability and believability, currency, and other characteristics of information source will demand and seek out reliable and credible news source. Next, agenda setting and gatekeeping. According to Metcom and so, is the ability of the media to direct people's attention to a specific issue. Aside of that, news media have a significant impact on audience by determining what story are considering newsworthy and how much the prominence and the space are given to this story. Furthermore, according to Gooch, agenda setting theory suggests that the media can influence which issue people think about, but not necessarily instigate change in how people think about them. For our methodology, this paper is examine political team's COVID-19 news reporting in the online media, and the information was gathered between 1st January until 31st August this year. And the researcher estimate the content of the news and categorized with two main characters, which first is government and second is the opposition political leaders. For the analysis of political team COVID-19 news reporting, as this period, we can see the 303 political teams news report as recorded, and for English language online media was 267, and following Malay and Chinese language as 33 and 3 reporters. In amount 303 news reporting, there is 202 is news report. As you can see, the mostly reported amounts is generally at 67. Next, in the 303 news report, there is about news reporting is 202, and others was article, opinion, letter to editor. And among 202, there is 113 was regarding our government, including Prime Minister, Senior Minister, Deputy Minister, and Chief Minister. While 89 news is regarding our opposition political. And among that, a total of 136 news story will focus on Pakatan National Government and Communist Party, while 112 news story focus on opposition party include the UMNO, which was odd with the government of Tan Sri Muhyiddin Yassin. And this also demonstrates that there is no discernible difference in news coverage of the ruling party, opposition, or UMNO. For this table 3, as you can see, the total number of news will quite equally, except the Pakatan National with more negative news because of the failure of the management. But although it's exempted, the government and the media have a closer relationship, local online media are still allowed to report freely, while news published by foreign online media, particularly positive news, including the opposition, is not censored. For another example, in fact, of 136 news story about PN, there is 87 is focused on the government failure in some areas, such as with hashtag Kerajaan Gagal, hashtag White Flag, or Lawan protest. And down there was some example we have recorded. Firstly, from the Malaysia Guinea, there is written about opinion which hashtag Kerajaan Gagal. For second is for the hashtag government border too. Conclusion, credibility in online news is a difficult concept to understand. The finding were that authority, fairness, objective, and balanced reporting were found to be important aspect of online credibility. The reader has been presented with COVID-19 pandemic news is in a fair and objective manner, according to the 303 analysis from some in online media. The argument that ruling elite spread the ideology through the media, regardless print or online media, is based on agenda setting and gatekeeper theory, and it is frequently used by those fighting for media freedom, may no longer be valid. Lastly, online media, include international media, have given an equal space to ruling party and opposition party, which is positive development in media society relation. That's for all from me. Thank you.
Okay, so then thank you for this very wonderful sharing from Ms. Tang. So there will now it's time for Q&A. Okay, let me go through the questions. So we will start with the most challenging one that is actually posted by Lau Lik Heng. In the questions, there are 3 sub-questions, right? So Ms. Leong, this question is directed to you. Okay, let me read out the questions, right? The first sub-question is the data collection system all been automated just by setting some of the keywords? Or still have gone through some manual process? So did you set up this automated filtering system, right, to help you with the data collections, or you do it manually, or you do it both ways?
Actually, our team members, we do it in both ways for the first and the second stage. Yeah, so we spend a lot of effort and time, the whole team, including the digital teams, and also the feedback, from other teams as well. When we had a lot of, progress report, discussion, with the group leader and other team members who in charge of, other related sectors.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you started with the manual one, or you started with this automated one?
We started with the manual one first. We
Okay.
spent a lot of time, by using the manual method for the first and the second stage, even, for the third stage as well.
Okay. So when did you begin with this automated filtering process?
I think the automated filtering process is once, we have gather, the related, information, because we need to assist the digital team. Because all this under, a lot of hard work and manual, then we don't have any funding. So we need to communicate with the digital team a lot in order, able to facilitate, their tasks.
Okay, thank you. And then the extended questions to the explanation that you have made. Can you briefly explain how the whole system works from web search to spreadsheets?
This is what, I believe, all the researchers, if they have to, in the initial stage, because we don't know, anything is what important, what is the major issue, that all these things. Then the other thing is we have to sometimes, when we started up, to collect the data, of course we can search, what happened, in 2020, because we have we started this project, I remember is the early of July 2020. So we can search a lot, data information which happened in last year, 2020. But for what is happening, going to happen, let's say in the next few months or in the next few weeks. So we have to do mapping based on what we have gotten, the data we have gotten, from our search. So we need to do a lot of further mapping and filtering. After that, once we got the data, so we need to discuss, what we need to, what is the gap, then what is the problem that we have been facing, what is insufficient, then all the limitation and the gaps. So all this, then we need to discuss, report to the project leaders, and also work closely with the digital team.
Okay, so it is your team that came out with the, suggested tips for this digital timeline, right? Because you're the one that directly, get in touch with this the data.
I think, because we have a few teams, to work, try our best, to assist for the content, add-ons of the this digital COVID digital platform. Actually, we share, our experience among during our discussion or report, to the project leader. So like it's a process, this journey. I think it's a very exciting and also how to say, good experience. We learn a lot how to communicate, how to work together, how to solve the problem. With the group member and also with the team members, together.
Yeah, I can, I can feel the challenge. The challenge is
yes, yeah,
right.
It's all the effort, like from not only for the digital, not only the digital team and also the economic team, but also contributed by social politics, philanthropy, then education, then all these teams. So it's such a wonderful, experience and process, for us to learn, continue to learn how to do research, by using manual, and like manually search, with the keywords and engine, and also like work with the digital team. Then we learn a lot, all these things.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Leong. Right.
Welcome.
So, yeah, we will move on to the next questions. The next question is posted by Chan Sing Yi. And this question is directed to Mr. Lee. Okay, so Mr. Lee is the second presenter in the second session. So Mr. Lee, in what area our government should emphasize to restart our economy?
Yeah, thank you, Bishop. Thank you for the question. As I mentioned in the presentation, so if we emphasize to restart our economy, the first thing we need to do is we need to cut off the transmission link and reopen all the sector economy, a lot the business now. Okay, since the business are initiate the operating, then the economy will automatically going to restart. But if we try to provide a lot of the stimulus package, to assist the business, but at the same time we lock down and do not let them to do their business. If it's impossible, the economy will restart. I hope that my answer can answer the question.
So there is one extended question from me.
Do
you think this digitizing the economy will be a way out in the future?
Yeah, sure, it will be a way out for the future, but maybe something that still cannot be wholly replaced the physical business now. Some like if we want to try to order some food to eat in the shop, we enjoy the feeling that we are eat in the upside and not the house. So we will spend our time, travel to the place and order for the food. So that's what we can see after the government say, hey, we can try, we can go up and eat already. So a lot of the people went up and full in the weekend. So that is, I think this is the people what people think the preference will make the physical business will still alive in future.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Lee.
Thank you.
So to the participants, if you still have any questions for any of the presenters of any of these sessions, we have done the session 1 and session 2. If you still have any questions for any one of them, feel free to post in the meeting chat, the chat box, right? Maybe, if we have time later on, we will get back to you, right, with your questions, and we will ask the presenters to answer the questions. Now, moving on to the third question is directed to Ms. Tang. And this question is, what could you say about the nature of the news portals as covered in your study and the type of the news, whether it is a positive or negative reporting towards the ruling coalition parties that they carry? So I noticed that in your findings, right, you highlighted this, there's a list of these news portals, right, online news portals that you mentioned, right? And then Malaysia Today, right? Malaysia Kini, right? And then I didn't really see, right? These are the mainstream news, online news portal. So I'm not sure whether do you have any, you have done any sorting, right? In terms of the mainstream news and also the alternative news portals as to the type of the news that they present, okay, whether they are more, in support of this and also sympathizing, right, opposition, or whether they are more sympathizing the ruling coalitions.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Chok. Actually, let me answer on behalf of Ms. Tang.
Yes.
I'm Sun Tian Bi, one of the researchers. Actually, I need to declare that this research is still undergoing. We still have a lot of details that we need to discuss and go through again. So actually, this is our first draft. So we have to admit that there's a lot of things that we need to clarify. So like what you mentioned just now, the online portal, although we have the Malaysia Kini news, and actually we cover other news as well, such as the Star, Sun, and some of them even China Press, the Chinese newspapers. But it is actually their website, it's from their website. So like we have found out before that actually the content of the news in the website and the newspaper sometimes is quite different. On the news website, sometimes they are more details. But on the newspaper, they are more simple because of the restrictions of the publication, the pages of the newspapers, and something else lah. But for the website, it's kind of unlimited space for them to write the news, so that they can make it more details and sometimes even a little bit outspoken. So this is the way that we are discussing it, that the traditional media and the online media is a bit different, but we need to go even details when this paper we are going to publish. And for the positive and negative, this one normally, actually we now have a very loose context. It's like the content of the news, they are criticize the government or criticize the opposition parties. So it's some things like that. But I think later we will do more details, like do the coding on the news and then to make it more clearer for everyone to understand. So is it answering your questions?
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Sun. Right.
Okay, thanks a lot.
So always look for the guru, right? If you want to get the best answer.
Yes, thanks.
Okay. So thanks to all the presenters in session 2. I think without any delay, we would like to move to this session 3. So session 3 will begin by inviting Dr. Tin, is it? Or Miss Tin So Hong, right? To present the title, The Impact of MOE Measures on Primary and Secondary Schools Teachers During COVID-19 Pandemic. Ms. Tin?
Thanks, Ms. Chok. Okay. Let me share my screen first. Okay, by the way, can you hear me clearly? Oops.
Yep, I can hear you, Ms. Tin.
Thanks, Kenneth. Okay, good morning, everyone. So today I'm going to present the topic on the impact of MOE measures to teachers, especially on the primary and secondary schools teacher during the pandemic COVID-19. So this study actually is carried out by Dr. To and myself and team here. Okay, let's look at the outline for today's presentation. So first, I will discuss on the government measures during the COVID-19 pandemic, okay, as well as the measures taken by MOE of Malaysia. Then I will discuss on the impact of the measures, right, to the teachers in primary schools and also secondary schools. Next, I'll focus on the vaccination issue. And lastly, will be the conclusion for today's paper. So let's recall back, okay, the timeline of the MCO and NRP. So MCO means movement control order. So and NRP, okay. So from the first MCO that is announced by our ex-Prime Minister, the Tan Sri Muhyiddin. The MCO was actually implemented from the 18th of March to the 3rd of May, so almost 2 months there. So in between, actually, we have extended a few times of the MCO. So later on, the stage move on to CMCO, which is a conditional movement control order, where when the government see that the new daily cases start to drop, so government announced new measures, which is CMCO, which carry about 1 month, right? So in fact, in June, right, our new case daily is actually less than 10 cases, okay, which is at the early stage, we actually did a good job, where you can see the new cases drop gradually, and the new cases in June is only less than 10 cases. Then later on, from early of June until 31st of March, the government declared that this period is as a recovery movement control order, right? So unfortunately, before we reach the 31st of March, in early of January 2001, the government had to announce the switching between the MCO, CMCO, RMCO, and EMCO. EMCO is actually the enhanced MCO, depending on the situation of the COVID cases in a different state, right? Okay, and some of the states or some of the places, even government implement the TANCO, that's a targeted enhanced MCO. Then on the 1st of June, we have the FMCO, followed by the NRP, which is a National Recovery Plan. So this National Recovery Plan, is actually introduced by our ex-Prime Minister as well, to emerge the to help the country to emerge from the COVID-19 pandemic and also its economic fallout. Okay, now let's look at the implementation of this MCO and NRP on the education sector. So for the MCO and CMCO implementation, so all the kindergartens, government schools, private schools, or even the international schools has to be closed, right? So the schools only can operate, or the other educational institutions can be only operate normally for the RMCO period. And however, for NRP, so NRP we actually can divide it into 4 phases. For the first phase, school still remain closed. So what happened to the students in the school? So we will carry out, the school will carry out the PDPR, means pengajaran dan pembelajaran di rumah. All right. So this PDPR is actually not like live streaming teaching only, but it is more known as a home-based learning. So which means the teachers are actually can have options to either give the lessons to the students through live streaming in the class, all right, by using different tools, or a teacher can actually post their teaching material as a homework for students to complete it and submit the homework through Google Classroom, right? That is the meaning of PDPR. And then for the second phase, the school still remain closed, so and have executes the PDPR lessons, and only the special needs students and exam class students can go back to school. So these exam class students is mainly for international exam and also STPM students. However, for the third phase, preschools, Form 5 students and other exam class students are actually allowed to go back to school. For the fourth phase states, most of the students can go back to school in stages, right? So this is 4 phases of the NRP that is introduced by government. Okay, now let's look at this one. Actually is a summary of the NRP based on the phases. For example, I pick up the SPM students, right? SPM students. So for SPM students, those stay in first phase. P stand for the PDPR, right? So class is run online. So second phase is still PDPR. Third phase, this dot here means sorry, SPM is here, right? So Sekolah Harian means normal government school and also private school. So for the third phase, G means the students are allowed to back to school by rotation, right? But by rotation. Fourth phase as well, these SPM students can go back to school by rotation. So what do you mean by rotation? If you study on their planning, right, or the SOP set by the MOE, if let's say there's one whole class, I mean the one whole class has to divide into 2 groups, right? So first, for example, group A and group B. So for the first week, group A will be in face-to-face learning and group B will be in PDBR. So this is how they control the number of students back to school, and so to make sure that they follow the SOP and the social distancing in the class is actually is that, right? If you can see that the arrangement of the classroom also suggested by the MOE, right? So that the students still can go back to the school and follow the proper SOP, right? Okay, so this slide is showing you the MOE measures during the pandemic, right? Since March 2020 until October 2021. So let's recall back, yeah. Actually, the first confirmed case is Malaysia is on 25th of January 2020, right? So and by that time that is still not that crucial, so there's no announcement on the MOE. But MOE only announced postpone of the sports and extra curriculum in schools, right? So the sports and extra curriculum is not allowed to carry on in schools on 13th of March. Then 18th of March, we have the first MCO. Then on 15th of July, school is reopened. Also, which means from 18th of March until end of the MCO, school is actually closed. So during this period, the school's children are actually learning PDB. I mean, learning the lesson or attend the lessons by using PDBR. But during that period, the MOE measure is not very clear. So some of the schools, they have the PDPR, but some of the schools, they don't have the PDPR, right? Because it's very, during that period, there's no clear guideline, right? Given by MOE. Then on 15th of July, schools, all the schools are reopened, right? All the schools are reopened. Sorry. So as you can see in the chart here as well, on in July, all right, in July, actually the number of new cases, daily new cases is dropped less than 10 cases, all right. On 15th of July, it's about 5 new cases only, right, which is actually at that period very good, okay, and that's why all schools are reopened again. But after two months, all right, after about a few months, 4 months, sorry, 4 months, right, and then the school is again closed. So as you can see here, see from the chart here, from July till November, the number of new cases increasing, right, increasing. So in November, the number of new cases here is up to 1,000 cases, right, 1,000 cases daily. So at that time, everybody is go into panic, all right, and that's why government MOE is again announced that the school will be closed, right? So the reasons why the number of cases increased due to the cluster from workplace, the cluster from schools as well. right? And then on the 1st of March, this one should be 2021, right? On the 1st of March 2021, preschools and primary schools reopen again, but the secondary school is still remain closed. All right, the secondary school is only open 1 month later. Then after that, May 2021, MOE announced that abolish UPSR permanently. Right, so during this period, actually, in year 2020, there is no UPSR examination. There is no PT3 examination. Right, it's because the school closed for a few months. The student actually did not attend the lessons in a proper schedule, right? And then on the 1st of June, which is our first MCO, so school again closed, right? School is again closed. Then until October, recently, school reopened again by stages based on the NRP phase. So this is a timeline of the MOE measures during the pandemic since March 2020 until October 2021. Right. So so let's look at the MOE measures during the COVID-19 pandemic. Right. So as I explained to you just now, the PDBR actually is implemented and during this COVID-19 pandemic. In fact, government actually provides the Google account, or we call it as MOE account, right, to all the students and also teachers in primary and secondary school. I mean, the primary and secondary government school. Okay, so teachers can actually deliver their lessons, right, to the students through the online learning, either live streaming or giving posted some homework in a Google Classroom so that students can complete it. So why teacher thinking of instead of having the online lessons or live streaming lessons and posted the questions or their homework in the Google Classroom? Because some of the students, they do not have enough device, right? So that's why they cannot, for example, in a family that have 4 children who is still studying. So the family who has I mean the income is lower, the family are unable to provide 4 devices for the 4 children in the home at the same time to have their online learning. So because of this reason, so the teachers have to take into consideration and post the homework in Google Classroom so that after when the device is available, the students are able to complete the homework, right, and submit the homework to teacher and let the teacher to access their homework. And okay, this is one measures taken by MOE during the pandemic. There's a PDBR, and the other one is TV Pendidikan. So MOE did a good job as well, where MOE collaborate with the Minister of Communication, right, to launch this TV Pendidikan so that the students can actually learn their lesson through RTM1 and RTM2, RTM1 and RTM2, yeah, right. So we have to consider also, I mean, the government consider also the internet coverage, right? Not all the areas has a good internet coverage and also the good internet access. So that's why they have this TV Pendidikan. Okay, then UPSR and PT3 cancel in year 2020. It is due to the students to have proper classes throughout March until the end of 2020. So government decide to cancel the these 2 examinations, right? Then at the same time, reschedule of the examinations such as SPM last year, right? It's supposed to be implemented in November 2020, but rescheduled to February and March 2021 this year. So school holidays also rescheduled, right? So during the pandemic, during the COVID-19 pandemic. And then, right. So next one is schools with a positive COVID-19 cases to be closed. So government, the MOE actually give the authority to the schools if that schools is detected the positive 19 cases, right? So the school has the authority to close the school immediately without getting the approval from the PPD or the MOH. PPD means from the pendidikan daerah, pejabat pendidikan daerah, right? So another one is free digital textbook for students to download. So all the textbook from standard 1 to SPM, right? So can actually download for free. Okay. So since the school is always closed, so I still remember that at the beginning of the year in January 2021, so school actually is open on 20th of January 2021 this year, right? But at that time, the school is still closed. So when the teachers have to run the PTBR lessons, the school children do not have the textbook. So most of the school children or the teachers share their textbook share the textbook with the students from the website, right? Where the students are allowed to download all these digital textbook, so that the students still are able to attend the PTBR, right? And with their digital textbook without the hard copy of the textbook. The textbook, the students can collect the textbook later, right? But it's not in maybe later end of January. Okay, and okay, next one is the MOE actually collaborate with the Minister of Communication and Multimedia, so to have the free internet data, right? And also gives the free gadget and devices to the low-income country, right? So these are the measures implemented by MOE during COVID-19 pandemic. Okay, and then what are the impact of primary and secondary schools teacher during this PDPR? So physical teaching, so suddenly change to online teaching, right? This one we have to accept it, okay, because school is closed, somehow that we have to conduct the lesson as well. We have to keep learning. So physical teaching change to online teaching. So some of the teachers, right, not only teachers, but students not familiar with the computers, right, not familiar with the IT tools, but this is maybe the disadvantage or the negative impact faced by the schools, teachers, and also the students. But however, there is if you look at another side, there's a positive impact. So some of the teachers is willing to learn, right? They know how to use, if initially they do not know how to use this kind of IT tools, but later on they are willing to learn. They can learn how to use the IT tools. For example, they know how to upload the video or record the video. They use some apps or software to teach. For example, they know how to use a Microsoft whiteboard, so that they can, the whiteboard is just like a whiteboard or the Blackboard app in school, right? And they know the teachers, schools teachers start to use some apps. For example, they would like to attract the attention of students. They use the apps as Canva to design a proper PowerPoint presentation. They use the TikTok to upload their short video. They know how to use the video editing, all right, to edit the video and so on. So actually, this is a positive side, positive impact of the primary schools teachers and also the secondary schools teachers. And the physical teaching changed to online teaching. So the role of parents became very important. So parents play a very important role to monitor their children in PDPR, right? So although the children is facing to the computer, so are they really listening to the lessons? Are they focusing, or are they, faced with the computer, but actually they are doing something else? They are chit-chatting with their friends online, or they are watching YouTube. We do not know. So at that time, the role of parents became very important. maybe parents have to follow up as well. So this is one of the impact, all right, for the PTPR. And then from changing the mode from physical teaching to online teaching, all right, so the internet access and the internet coverage become very important as well, right? So students and teachers, not only students, but teachers also maybe face a problem of a lacking of internet access, internet coverage, and also the devices, right? So we have to have, especially teachers, make sure that the device is comfortable, right? Webcam is there, the mic is clear, and the computer is comfortable as well. And so unstable, so the impact, another impact is maybe the internet coverage is unstable, and also the coverage is not enough, especially in the rural area. Okay, and another impact is especially for teachers. Teacher is actually very difficult to assess the learning effectiveness of students, right? So although the students is sitting in front of the computer, so are they learning in our online lesson? Okay, so at the same time, how can the teachers ensuring the effectiveness of the assessment? Okay, maybe some of the schools that have their assessment, they have assessment online. So is the assessment effective? Is the assessment is actually the correct, accurate assessment that can assess students' level or students' performance? So these are the, two major, right, negative impact that faced by schools, teachers, right? Difficulty in assessing the learning effectiveness and also the assessment. So other issues, as I mentioned to you just now, cancellation of UPSR and PT3, right? Gets actually various response, different response from different parties, right? So some supports these measures, but some actually disagree with this measure, right? The cancellation of PT3, UPSR and PT3, the negative impact is actually we do not know students' performance, right? For example, from primary 6 students, when they proceed to Form 1, right? So actually, we do not know how is the academic performance of that students. So whether the students is able to or more suitable towards to the study, for example, RBT subject or ASK. Right? RBT stands for Reka Bentuk dan Teknologi, right? And ASK stands for the Asas Science Computer. So students are in secondary school, so students actually have to opt, right, so-called as streaming. They either follow the RBT or the ASK subjects. So for the past, the school will look at their UPSR results. So usually for those high performance students or the average and above students, they will actually choose, the school will opt for ASK for this group of students, right? So that's why without the UPSR result, schools actually face a difficulty, right, to stream the students to which subject. So same as PT3 students, when they proceed to Form 4, right, the streaming of studies, so whether they are going to science stream, art stream, accounting, computer science, or other streaming. So schools may lack of this kind of information, right, on the streaming of studies of students. So this is actually the negative impact. The positive impact is maybe we will say that, okay, without this kind of examination, so actually we less focus on the exam-oriented assessment, right? And then reschedule of a SPM examination date, all right, did it impact as well, because it will actually disrupt the admission of students to higher education institutions, right? For example, this year the SPM 2020 was implemented in February this year, right? By the time the result was released, it's actually in May, right? May, or we call it as a May intake, actually is the first intake for most of the private higher learning education. So if the release date of SPM delay till May, so this may disrupt the admission of the students to higher learning educations, right? And then the support of MOE maybe is not sufficient enough, right? So it's not sufficient enough. What is the meaning of this? So which means although MOE is making an effort that support the teachers to carry out the PDPR, but there is still room for improvement, right? For example, in year 2021 budget, right? The government actually promised to provide 150,000 computers, free computers to students from the B40 families, right? But up to April 2021, there are only 13K of computers has been distributed. So I mean the process is a little bit slow. So and the number of computers that provided is actually much less if you compare with the number of students in Malaysia. So we have about 5 million students nationwide. Okay, so maybe there is still room for improvement for the MOE, right? To have more support from the MOE to have to run this PDPR. Then the problems in rural area. So as I mentioned just now, the internet coverage, right, and internet access, the stability of the internet in the rural area actually is quite weak. Okay, and maybe we have to consider how to improve this internet coverage in the rural area. So other than that, in rural area, I would say that most the family, their parents, maybe education's level is not very high. So it's very difficult. The parents are having a difficulty to monitor their children's performance and progress in PDPR lesson, right? And lack of communication between MOE and also the MOH, right? So it is because when schools open in March, right, 2021 this year, I can see that the number of cases suddenly increased very high, right? There's a spike in March 2021 this year, okay, due to the cluster from schools, right? So at that time, there is no proper communication between MOE and MOH, right? The school does not close, right? And there's no instruction from MOH and MOE as well how to handle the school cluster, right, at the early stage. So there is a lack of communication. So that's why the public feel is satisfied with this kind of communication as well. Okay, now let's look at the vaccination issue. So teachers became the second batch to be vaccinated, right? So in my opinion, actually, teachers is actually very important as well, to be treated as important as the frontliner, because teacher has to face to many students in the class and in the schools. Okay, so up to now, so I would say that it's good. So most of the teachers already vaccinated, right? And government has made an announcement as well. Only fully vaccinated teachers and staff are allowed to back to school, right? For those teachers, what we call it as an anti-vaxxer teachers, will not be allowed to conduct in person in the classes, right? So this one will actually create a disruption of the lessons, because schools need to arrange the timetable for the teacher, for this group of teachers who is anti-vaxxer teachers, arrange the timetable properly so that there is no disruption of lessons. So schools play a very important role how to arrange the lessons for the anti-vaxxer teachers. And vaccination also now is given for 12 to 17 years old teenagers or the school children. So, but there is no, up to today, there is still no announcement for the anti-vaxxer students, right? So for the anti-vaxxer students are still allowed to back to school. So parents and students or their peers may worry as well, right? So I think government have to look into it as well. how to actually consider this anti-vaxxer students, this group of students, right? So hopefully, very soon, right, those children below 12, right, maybe from 6 years old until 11 years old, they can get their vaccination soon as well, right? So that all the school children are vaccinated. Right. Conclusion is, we actually not only MOE, right? Most of the educators and students actually prefer physical class, because physical class can have a lot of interaction. You can see in the picture here, students actually interact each other, communicate each other as well, right? So in schools, we are not only learning the academic or the knowledge from teachers, but also we learn how to interact. We learn how to communicate among the peers. We know how to communicate with teachers. So physical class is still very important, right? So most of the teachers face problems in PDPR. So not only teachers, but also students face the problems in PDPR, such as the major would be the internet coverage, the gadget use. All right, so these are the two major issues faced by teachers and school students during the PDPR lesson. And then PDPR also need to, if let's say PDPR is still carry on, so it also needs cooperation from the Ministry of Communication and Multimedia, so that the coverage of the internet, right, can be covered up to the rural area. Okay, we have to speed up the project, right? So that the rural area, the coverage of internet, no problem, and the internet access also is stable as well, so that all the students can have the PDPR lessons. Okay, so vaccines are the key to restoring face-to-face education, right? So government did a good job. So now vaccinations, already 72% of the school, the teenagers, right? 72% of the teenagers already vaccinated at least the first dose, right? So vaccines are the key to restoring the face-to-face education. So if you would like to back to school, face-to-face, have the face-to-face lesson, I think vaccine is the most important one. Okay, so then my recommendation here is actually we need to have strategies how to reduce the negative impact, right? So maybe these strategies should be developed in the future studies. Okay, so that's all my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Tin. A very detailed, right, analysis and also the study on this, the impact of this COVID-19 on primary and secondary schools. So we'll move on to the next presenter. I'd like to call upon Dr. Sun Tian Bee to deliver her presentations on the rationality of Muhyiddin political decision-making while combating the COVID-19 pandemic in Malaysia in the year 2020. Dr. Sun?
Okay, wait, let me see. Okay. This is my presentation for today. The title is The Rationality of Muhyiddin Political Decision-Making while Combating the Pandemic Malaysia in the year 2020. For this one, I used the 1-hour parliament sitting that held in May 18 as my case studies. So the background is, I just do a simple introduction about the background. So when Mahathir Mohamad resigned as the 7th Prime Minister of Malaysia on February 24, 2020, along he advised Sultan Abdullah Riyatuddin, the head of state, to dissolve the cabinet ministers. After 5 days of power struggles, Sultan Abdullah Riyatuddin announced on February 29 that Muhyiddin Yassin, the chairman of the Malaysian United Indigenous Party, had won the support of 114 MPs out of 222 MPs as the 8th Prime Minister of Malaysia. Muhyiddin sworn in on 1st March. So prior to the dissolution, the Alliance of Hope government had scheduled the first parliamentary meeting in 2020 to be held from March 9 to April 16. At first, Muhyiddin extended the meeting to May 18 and shortened the meeting to 15 days because he was yet to form a cabinet. On April 17, Muhyiddin government announced that the meeting would only hold for 1 day due to the outbreak of the second wave COVID-19. For the same reason, on May 13, Muhyiddin stated that he decided to adjourn the meeting after an hour of royal address. Despite there was grave objection from opposition's politicians and netizens, the May 18 Parliament meeting still only proceed for 1 hour. So for the first time in the history of Malaysia, the Parliament sitting only held for 1 hour on May 18, 2020, and the sitting adjourned after the royal address, just like Muhyiddin planned earlier. So we can say that 1 hour parliament actually was a political decision. So there is a question that I try to answer in this paper. For the sake of the people, was it having a 1 hour parliament a rational choice to Muhyiddin? So according to Professor Marius Profilo, what is the meaning of rational decision? The decision is assimilated to a single actor, reasoning that seeks to maximize the purpose depending on means at its disposal. So what to Muhyiddin, what is the purpose that he needs to maximize at that moment? So let us review it step by step. At first, we need to know that when making a decision, 3 questions we should always bear in mind, especially for the our prime minister or the elite when they're making the decision. So first of all, they need to know what is the problem they are facing and what are the possibilities or variants to solve this problem. So among these variants, which is the better choice for them to serve better the purpose that they need to maximize? So for rational model of decision making, I need to do a brief introduction about this type of decision making. The rationalist model of decision making is not a simple sequence of actions. It is assumed from the beginning that there is an order between the values established, and public decision maker is aware of the values on which it intends to be concentrated. Also, it is assumed that decision-making stages of the process must always be presented in the order that was established above. It is also assumed that the decision maker is able to obtain all information related to the subject of the decision, and therefore he may actually take into account all possible alternatives. So the rationalist model of decision making process actually have 5 steps. We can see from this model, at first, the decision maker, they need to have the information input, and then they start to identifying the context they are in. And after that, they will determine the action possibilities that they can solve the problem. After that, they estimated all the consequences that the actions they have determined. And comparison of consequences and seeing which can maximize their purpose, and finally analyze the possible action and the output. The output is the regional policy that which they are decided to take. So we knew that when the 1 hour sitting parliament was held, the backdrop of our country, Malaysia, was the spreading of the COVID-19. Although from these figures, we can find out that the confirmed case was quite a few compared to today's, that our confirmed case is around thousands. But at that moment, if we still can recall, when there was 3 digits confirmed case, a lot of people has already shaking. We were so afraid, and actually along with the countries, foreign countries, one by one has already to shut out their countries. A lot of voices in Malaysia also urged the government to shut the country, to close the nations and have the movement control order. So by 16th of March, Muhyiddin have already announced the first MCO, which is going to implement on 18th of March. So at the day he announced the MCO, it was 125 cases. But at that time, nobody was died yet. But the next day, it's already first death case appeal. And eventually, at the end of 17 March, there were 2 cases, 2 death cases. And we could see that the numbers of the cases was increased for that moment. On 17th of April, which the day that the Muhyiddin government declared that the sitting would be extended, the confirmed cases was 69. It has been started to reduce. And on the day the 1 hour sitting was held, the confirmed case was 47 cases. We can see that the confirmed case has been reduced from 125 to 47. But we should bear in mind that at that moment, our country was still under the conditional movement control. So actually the government was not encourage us to have mass gathering or even going out to our house unless some special condition that the government allowed us to go outside. So actually the epidemic has indeed posed a serious threat to both the health of Malaysians and the economy of Malaysia. Confirmed cases and unemployment rates were increased and the GDP was decreased. So when we check the GDP on October 2020, the Ministry of Finance of Malaysia estimated that our GDP would drop 3.3%. Compared to last year was 5.5%. The last year here mentioned is 2019, but the ministry assumed that in 2020, the GDP would decrease to 3.3%. In addition, the Social Security Organization, PERCASO, pointed out that as of October 22, the unemployment rate in Malaysia was 4.7%. And a total of 89,596 people were unemployed. The unemployment rate had increased 278%. I repeat, 278% compared to the same period last year. So we can learn from this figure that because of the pandemic, our economy was badly hurt, and it resulted to the employment rates and GDP of our nations. So the people is suffering. To be rational, actually, the government should curb the COVID as soon as possible. And coping the COVID, the spreading of the COVID should be the first priority in the government's list. Okay, so let us see. With these 5 models, we knew that finally, when we see back the history, we knew that 1 hour parliament was held, parliament sitting, which actually, in fact, it should be 15 days, but finally it only have 1 hour parliament sitting. So let us see how did Muhyiddin make his decision with this process. So actually, this is the estimation that the process that Muhyiddin was facing. So the context at that time, the government actually was making their effort to containing the spread of the COVID-19. So to determine the action possibilities to contain the spreading, as well as the parliament has to be held. So actually Muhyiddin has at least 4 choices, 4 actions to take. One is have the normal sitting, which is going to held for 15 days as planned by the Alliance government, at Alliance Hope government from the year before. Or he could also change again the date of the parliament sitting. Or maybe he could also announce the state of emergency so that he can postpone the sitting of the parliament, like which it happened this year. So another choice is shorten the period of sitting. So with the backdrop of containing the spread of the COVID-19, he has these 4 possibilities action to choose. So let us estimate what's the consequences with these 4 actions when he taken. We can see that if he chose the normal sitting, there would be a potentially spreading the virus through the members of parliament. So when these members of parliament, maybe they catch the virus, and when they go back to their constituencies, they may spread to their people as well. As later we learned that a lot of politicians has caught the virus, right? And then they have been spreading to their neighbors, friends and families, and even the voters. So this is why we scare a lot, because this would be the cross-state spreading from our MPs. And if he chose to change the date, Muhyiddin government choose to change the date of the sitting, then he will have a lot of noises from the opposition parties and the people. Actually, he has already gained a lot of noises because he wants to extend the sitting, and then finally shorten the sitting. It has been a lot of noises already, because somebody even claimed that he was too afraid that he would be ousted if the parliament was held. Although it may be the possible things that happen, but actually don't forget, at that moment, the mission of Muhyiddin government was to contain the spreading of the COVID-19. So if he changed the date, the noise will come again, and it will maybe interrupt the way or interrupt the minds of the Muhyiddin governments to implement the SOP, the policies, everything to combat the spreading of the COVID-19. So if he announced the state of emergency, we knew that just hundreds of people, just hundreds of confirmed cases, it's not that serious to announce the state of emergency so that he can postpone the sitting. So it would be violating the institution. So if he shortened the period of sitting, he could fulfill the institution, because according to our rules of our country, that the parliament sitting has to hold 6 months after the previous meeting was held. So the previous sitting was held in December 2020. So to the Muhyiddin's government, in order not to violate the institution, he need to hold the sitting before June. So since there has already a lot of noises from the oppositions and netizens, therefore to fulfill the institution, maybe shorten the period of sitting is the best choice to him. So after compare of the consequences, shorten the sitting then he could reduce the potentially spreading the virus through the members of parliament back to their constituency. And at the same time, he can fulfill the institution's requirement. So finally, we can see that how this 1 hour parliament is coming out from his decision making. And some more, he canceled the debate session, although to a lot of people that thinks that it is already violate the institution. Actually, it is abnormal to a parliament sitting, but this is also for him to take his effort, to make his effort to implement all his policies. Maybe somebody thinks that some corruptions or something that there is abnormal may happen for the policies that he's implementing without the discussion or this debating in the parliament. But it also helped him to be more rational and faster to contain the issues. So I didn't say that I support this kind of the way, but actually it is his rationality, so that less noise to interrupt his policy implementation. So how the people actually, after this output that Muhyiddin has done, so how the people surface? Actually, when we talk about rules institution, we need to abide. This is necessary. But sometimes abide is a thing, but how the people respond to it is also very important to politicians, because people are voters. Voters are supporters. Voters account. Voters' votes account to them that whether they will be the MPs again or even Prime Minister again. Bear in mind, we don't know at that moment, we don't know what will happen in 2021. At that moment, Muhyiddin was just a Prime Minister that's just sworn in, and he was trying to combat the COVID-19. So how's the people react? We can see when this May 18 1 hour sitting, parliament sitting was held, Muhyiddin's approval rating from the people was 72%. A month later was 74%. And then after that, yes, it again 73%, 74%, and later on August is 69%. So we just ignore these three first. We look at these two percentage, because the 1 hour sitting was happened on May, and then maybe it will be some influence on June. The people, after they read the newspaper, survey online, and listen to all the opinions about 1 hour sitting, their reaction may be occur in June. But we see that the approval rates was high, 72%. What's the meaning about high? We can see that compared to Dr. Mahathir Mohamad and Muhyiddin Yassin, bear in mind, Muhyiddin was sworn in March. So 2 months later, his approval rating was 72%. And Mahathir was sworn in on May. So his 2 months later, his approval rating, which is July, was only less than, sorry, here is not very clear. Actually, this figure is 71%. He is lower than Muhyiddin, even though Muhyiddin has held a 1 hour parliament sitting that a lot of people is unhappy with that, but he still has high approval rate from people. So compared to the next month, the third month, Mahathir has sworn in as a prime minister. His approval rate was 67%, but to Muhyiddin, he is still 74%. So no matter how we feel uncomfortable, some of the people feel uncomfortable to what Muhyiddin has done, majority of the people is satisfied with what Muhyiddin was done on March to June, including the 1 hour parliament sitting, which has break the record of Malaysia. So why people so happy with what Muhyiddin has done? Because let us see about this survey. Actually, this was done the same day. This approval rating was done. So what the biggest problem facing by the country? Most of the people feels that it was the economic concerns. To the Malaysian people, to survive is the most important thing during the COVID-19. We heard that a lot of unemployment rates, a lot of poor people, white flags after that. So to survive for them is the main concern. Politics or other, even the administration, government administrations, it is not their concern anymore. Even that somebody has said, Muhyiddin may have boiled, because only 1 hour parliament sitting, may have boiled the institution, but to majority of people, only when my stomach is full, I will concern about this thing. Other than that, as long as the government can combat the COVID-19 and then the economy back to normal, I can have my jobs back, I can have the full salary back, and I can have my stomachs full as well as my families. This is the main issues. So as the conclusions, I just do a very short conclusion here. Although Muhyiddin government has broken the record by holding the shortest sitting in Malaysia, parliament sitting in Malaysia, he did not violate the rules of holding the parliament sitting not later than 6 months than previous parliament sitting was held. By holding the sitting without debating session, some also claim that he has violated the institution. But the approval of ranking show that he has made a rational decision, which the people needs. Economy first. Only when the pandemic is cured, then the economy will back to normal. So rational choice in this moment is, do the people think that he is doing the right thing, and not the academicians or some of the opposition party thinks. The majority, how the majority people think is the main point. This is the end of my presentation. Thank you. Back to you, Ms. Chok.
Thank you, Dr. Sun. I think this is a very important study, and I hope that you can also, carry on with what you said. It's still in progress, right?
Yes.
So we will go through the questions that we received here. So I will start with you. There is one question directed to you by Wilson Chin Zheng Dong. So Wilson would like to know, will the current government be able to manage the pandemic?
I think for this pandemic issue, we should live with it already. It's not about whether the government can manage it or not, because we knew that all over the world, all the government encourage the people to live with it, because this pandemic actually is kind of like the chilling that we have before. So like having a cold or something. But why this pandemic has so high mortality rates? Because we didn't find the medicines that we can take it as long when we have been convicted. So like when we have fever, we just take a Panadol. That's the thing. But for past years, ancient years, when there was no Panadol, there was also a lot of people died because of Panadol. So I think there is still the question is when this kind of medicine coming out. So I don't think that manage this pandemic is still a question. We need to live with it. As long as the medicine is not coming out, we still need to live with it. The economy cannot suffer anymore. That's my answer. Thanks. And thanks for your question, Wilson.
Yeah, so and then another follow-up questions from me.
Okay.
Okay, so since you mentioned and you have concluded that Muhyiddin's decision-making is a rational model, it's based on rational model, I would like you to comment on this our new PMs and also his decision-making styles, because apparently, okay, both these are the ruling coalition and also the opposition have signed the MOU. So it looks like, okay, he has a rather different style of managing, right, the pandemic and also managing the political crisis. So what is your comment on that?
Actually, I think he just sworn in recently. So actually, we still can't find a style. And in fact, I think he is the kind of person that he is more taking advices from other minister or even from other consultants. So actually, to me, he is too new for me to make the observation yet. I still need to see some more things. But I think that for the decision to cross stakes, I think it's from Kyrie, the Ministry of Health, and his team. So because if we go through all the internationals, the foreign governments, their decision makings, even though when UK, they decide to open their countries to back to normal, is the peak of the confirmed cases. But actually, they manage quite well now, although the death rate is still a little bit high. And even Holland is the same thing, but Holland has managed it very well. The confirmed case and the death rate is reduced. So it actually depends on how we adhere to the SOP is the more important thing. Now the government cannot do much.
Okay, thank you so much. Right, Dr. Sun. Okay, so for the audience information, our current Prime Minister is Ismail Sabri Yaakob. I didn't mention his name. Okay, my apologies. Right, so thank you, Dr. Sun. We'll move on to the next questions. So there's one question that is directed to Ms. Tin from Zhenjia Jin. Okay, the question is, what are the advantages and disadvantages of online and physical class?
Right, thanks for the question, Ms. Chok.
Yeah.
Right, well, there are actually pro and con, right, to have the online and physical class. Okay, let's look at the online first. The advantages to have an online class is actually students, maybe some of the school teachers, right, posted the video in YouTube, so the students are able to view the video for several times so that you can understand the concepts they learn. Right, this is one of the advantage. And then maybe students, I would say that save time as well, because students do not need to go back to school. Maybe their house, the distance from their house to school is very far, a few kilometers or more than 10 kilometers. So they spend time to reach school. So online means they can just stay at home, right, and save a lot of time, right? This is the advantage. And I will say that disadvantages is small, right? For example, for the teachers, where teachers need to prepare a lot of materials, right? When they have when the teachers conduct the class online or the PDPR, they need to prepare the PowerPoint, they need to prepare the videos and other teaching materials, which must all digitize, right? So that the students can learn it, right? Another the disadvantage of the online is lack of communication, right? And also the interactive, right, in the class. So in a physical classroom, students and teachers actually interact a lot, right? They talk, they communicate, right? So I think it is very important for all the schools and teachers and also the students to have a communication among each other, okay? And another thing is especially for the science students, right? So if they have a class online, they don't have this kind of for the science student, they have to go to lab, right, for the hands to run the hands-on experiment. So for the online, all right, so some of the tools we cannot do it at home, right? So that's why the psychomotor skill of the students for the science students maybe will not as good as if compared with the physical lessons, right? And I like to add on another point for the online classes. I think recently I read a news saying that the students have the online class will actually affect students' eyesight, right? So a lot of students recently, their eyesight become very poor. So most of the students now are wearing spectacles. Okay, so this is my answer. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Tin. Yeah, so I just received a comment from Yun Lee. This comment is directed to Dr. Sun. The rational decision thinking findings was based on the survey is considered as too thin. It makes a convenient causation. Furthermore, when was the survey conducted? Probably the best conclusion is in general people are just indifferent. Should that be the case, the one-day thing should be assessed on key stakeholders. So basically, okay, this is the comment on the methodology or the analysis that you have conducted, and based on the case study that you have selected. And you might want to comment on that or respond to these comments.
Okay, actually the survey of the people I was taking from the medical review, it was conducted like, I think it's August or September, sorry, I need to check, on 2020. So actually it published at the same day when they published the approval rating of Muhyiddin and do the comparing with Mahathir and Najib. So yes, I agree with you. In general, people are just indifferent because to general people, not all of them are really so into the politics thing, and a lot of them not really under what is parliament sitting or institution, everything, because most of them, they just want to be fit. Most of the people like that. So for those who are really caring about the institution, the parliament, it is the politician, the pundits, the academicians, and some of the people that really interested in this issue. Just like when we study politics, we found that when we vote for a candidate, not everyone really know about his political thinking, what he is trying to defend. What is his ideal when they vote? Some of the people just vote because this candidate is good looking, he's handsome, he's young, she's beautiful. So yes, majority of the people is indifferent. They just do what they think is the best. But this is the rational of them. This is what they think they are rational. Because when we want to define rational, we need to go into every person's and do it individually, because everybody has the different definition of rational. So yes, I agree with you again. Most of the people are indifferent. Thank you.
Thanks, Dr. Sun. Yeah, thank you so much for your insightful response. Yeah, so we have we have yet to come to the end, but we are going to have this Wi-Fi. We are going to take the group photos. So we like to, pass this to the working committee, right? To begin this, the group photo session. So please, by the way, we'd like to invite all the participants to turn on the camera so that we are able to capture your, image. Thanks. Mr. Lee?
Yes, so I think
We may start now. Yeah.
we may start. Okay. One. Yeah. Again. Okay, thank you.
Thanks to all the participants. So it is time for us to have a closing session now. And this closing is also as interesting as all the sessions that we have gone through. So I would like to pass this, the task to Mr. Kenneth because I would like to excuse myself right for another meeting. Kenneth, you may take over.
All right, thank you so much, Ms. Chok. Can I call upon Dr. Chin to give the closing remarks? Thank you very much. Dr. Chin, I think you're muted. Yeah, still muted, Dr. Chin. We cannot hear you.
Dr. Chin already logged up. Wait, see here. Yes,
Right, I think it is working now.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yep,
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you, Dr. Chin.
Yeah, just now the mic was muted and I couldn't unmute it. Okay, so anyway, right, so thanks Kenneth and thanks Ms. Chok. And I would like to thank all the participants also for staying with us since this morning. Right, so now coming back to our digital timeline project. Right, so as all of us know, it's a known fact that the fight against COVID-19 needs management, right, from all sectors and structures of our society, right? So we cannot just leave this burden to the government, right? So we have to share this burden, everybody, right? Whether the people, the NGOs, right? So everybody needs to play their parts, right, in ensuring we will overcome, right, the pandemic and the disease, right, and all the implications. Okay, so therefore we need an organized a helicopter view, right, an overview with sufficient depth, right, with sufficient information depth into the development of disease and how it has impacted our society, right? So based on our own observations, right? So we have seen many timelines, right? But each of these timelines focus on its own purposes, right? Like for example, COVID now focus more on the development, telling the public the development of disease, how many cases, how many in ICUs, and so on. So we need this information, right? So we need this information, but at the same time also we need to look at many other aspects, right, of how this pandemic has caused miseries, right, to the people in Malaysia, right? So therefore, we hope our digital timeline will provide this function, right? And I think as informed in the earlier session, so we started this project somewhere in July this year, right? So we gathered together voluntarily, actually, right? So we get together and we spend time, right? Spend time to develop this timeline, and we know that it still requires improvement, right? So there are many areas that I think we still need to improve, right? And we will do that, right? We will continue to improve, and we will continue to also update the information in our timeline, right? And we will also try to seek better ways to improve the presentation, right? The outlook of the timeline too, right? And all these informations, we hope to keep it in our TCLC resources website, right? So if you are, as shown earlier, right? So you can view our website from our timeline, right? From the TCLC resources, social sciences resource website, right? So we will do this, and we will continue to update, right? But I think as all of us know too, the government will soon declare the pandemic as over, right? So when we started this project, we were focusing on the pandemic. So we will continue to update the informations in our timeline until the government declare we are now shifting to the endemic stage, right? So by then we will end this project, right? Okay, so well, I would like to take this opportunity also to thank our whole team, our colleagues, right, our friends, right, for making this timeline possible, right. So we actually work quite hard. We can see from all these efforts, especially from like for example, Mr. Ken Lee, right. So he's responsible to design and also upload all the informations given to him, right. So we know that that's a lot of work, right. So you know, our other team members continuously feed him the information, and he has to continuously regularly update all the informations into the timeline. A lot of work, a lot of tedious work, right. And for our other colleagues, I think we have spent a lot of time also, right, on looking for informations from various sources, right, because all of us work from home, right. So and there's no way for us to go out, especially during the last few months, right. So we work from home, and then I think we explore every possible ways, right, to gather informations that are related to our own area, right. So we hope that I think all of us in the team, I hope that all our participants today, right, you will help us, right, by sharing this timeline, right, in your own to your own network of people, right. So we hope that by this through this sharing, right, so then we will allow more people to access our timeline and to know our timeline, and we hope that from there we may somehow assist the Malaysians, all Malaysians, to know more about the disease, to know more about the development of disease and its impact to our country, and consequently, eventually it will help us to create or come up with more better ideas to live with the virus, to fight the virus, and so on, right? Okay, so I think that's all from me. Thanks, Kenneth.
All right, thank you very much, Dr. Chin. So on behalf of all the presenters, on behalf of TCLC, I would like to thank everyone for your kind attendance. Your attendance means a lot to all of us. So with that, our webinar today has come to an end. Have a great day ahead. Bye.